The 2020 U.S. Junior Championship features 10 of the strongest chess players in America under the age of 20. Over the course of 9 rounds, these competitors will battle for $20,600 in prize money and bragging rights as the best young player in the United States. This year's competitive field will showcase 7 players who are among the top 100 juniors on the planet, including world number 5 Sam Sevian and world number 2 Jeffrey Zhang, who won the World Junior Championship in 2016. The future of U.S. chess is on full display in what should be an intense battle all the way to the finish line.
Welcome to Championship October. We have 4 events left for you, and today we bring you the start of the 2020 U.S. Junior Championship, one of my favorite events. I am Jennifer Shahade, and I'm here today with Grandmasters Yasser Seirawan and Maurice Ashley to call this event full of talent. Hello, Yaz.
Hello, Jennifer. As always, delighted to be with you, and a big welcome back to Maurice. Nice to be alongside you, my friend, calling the action. Indeed, this is the 2nd national championship in this October-filled national championship month. And I got to tell you, I love the junior championships. I played in quite a number myself. They were intense affairs. And these young men have a lot to play for and a lot to prove. Maurice.
Welcome back, Maurice.
Oops.
As I think he might be, we've missed him for so long.
I know.
Now we have to wait another minute to get his voice.
Just a second. Let me release the mute button that I might have inadvertently pressed. I'm sorry, Maurice. Are you still with us? I guess not.
You know what? Why don't we take a look at the players and
exactly.
Then we'll get back to that. Let's take a look at this outstanding field that we have in store in the next week. Well, we've got next 3 days rather. Well, we've got Jeffrey Zhang, one of the top players in the U.S. He's 19 years old. Sam Sevian, our 2nd seed, also an incredible star. And we love to see Sam play. But some of these other players, I haven't gotten a chance to call their names as much as I would have liked. I see them at the National High School Championships, the U.S. Open. But now here they are playing the U.S. Junior Championship for that coveted U.S. Championship spot.
Exactly. And as I look at our player roster, I'm just drawn by the fact that 5 of the 10 players are grandmasters. And I just find that absolutely incredible, Jen. It just goes to show what a great talent we have. And what about our format for this event, Jen?
Well, it looks just like the U.S. Junior Girls Close, which we just called, and Carissa Yip won that. We're going to have 10-player round robin. That means 3 games a day, so there's 10 players, so everybody plays 9 players. Time control, game 25 with a 5-second increment. Love this time control. Allows for us to explore some of the niceties in the early moves while it gets really fun and wild towards the end. And they're playing for prize money, and there will be a champion, as there will be a tiebreak for first place if we need it.
And just the schedule one more time, 3 games a day you mentioned, but also tiebreak on our 3rd day.
If we need it, and I feel like this field is very feisty, so.
Yeah, we may need it.
The meteorology report is saying high chances of playoff on October 15th. But this is going to be great. And we do, I believe, have Grandmaster Maurice Ashley back. Welcome back to the show, as he is going to run down some of our favorites and one of our newcomers.
You know, I'm so excited to jump in and say hello to you guys and then find out you guys can't hear me. It's one of those quirks of technology. I don't know what happened, in fact, but I think we have it all straightened out now. So, yes, thanks for being back on the show. And yes, I'm excited as well to see the future of American chess on full display. It's incredible when you think about all the youngsters like yourself back in the day, Yaz, who played in these marvelous events, the future stars who will emerge as truly indeed the ones who will compete for US championship titles for decades to come. And of course, we see this amazing lineup, and two players stand out, Jeffrey Zhang and Sam Sevian, who will not only be playing in this event, but also in the US championship as well. These two incredible young players have already played in US championships, but this will be their last ever US junior, as they will age out. Both this year will turn 20 years old. And let's talk about these players a little bit more. Jeffrey Zhang, of course, we know he is a star. I mean, he is a high level player already, one of the top players in the world. This 19-year-old from Texas won the World Junior Championship back when he was only a 16-year-old, and now saying, well, I belong at the elite of the elite. He is fifth best player in the country, which makes him the fifth board, the alternate on the Olympic team. He's played, he seems like a veteran actually, as such a youngster. He's played in so many US championships already. Remember, he broke even in one of them. He is one to watch, certainly here at this event, as he could easily run up the score against the field. But then we have Sam Sevian. He doesn't want to be in Jeffrey's shadow. Also 19, from Massachusetts. He has won the 2017 American Continental Championship, the youngest ever winner, in fact, of that event. And Sam has been here for so long. He's the youngest grandmaster in US history at the moment. Youngest ever, beating out all the likes of the Nakamuras and Jeffrey Zhang. He is certainly a star player. And remember, he played in the US Championship when he was only 12. A youngster coming in, but now a veteran at 19. He doesn't want to play second fiddle to anyone at all. And speaking of youngsters, Christopher Yu, only 13 years old. He held the record at the time in 2016 of becoming the youngest ever master in US chess at age 9. That record has since been broken, but the spirit of this young man will not be. Simply a rising star. 13, he'll have his hands full, and look at all those books. Yasser, that library rivals yours. What an amazingly well-read youngster at such a tender age. Extraordinary. He is one to watch in this event as well.
Remarkable for sure, Maurice. Fantastic. And Jen, let's take a look at the first round pairing. Start us off. What do you got?
All right, let's take a look. I did want to see another look at that bookshelf, though. I didn't see chess stools. Yeah.
Oh, might have to work on the quality.
So we've got some great pairings, as always. Christopher Yu is going to play against Sam Sevian. Huge battle as one of the youngsters plays one of the veterans of the event, if you can call anyone in a junior event a veteran. Sam is the closest one to it, as well as his other contender for favorite in the event, Jeffrey Zhang, the highest rated player, playing against John Burke. They both start with the black pieces. You know, we've been seeing Jeffrey a lot lately as the underdog, right? Playing against Magnus Carlsen in clutch chess, playing in the St. Louis Rapid and Blitz. And now we get to see him as the one who's supposed to run the table.
Yeah, he's definitely a rating favorite. Can he do it? And what are they playing for?
Well, they're playing for over $20,000, including $6K for first place. And hey, first place is even sweeter because it also comes with a $6,000 college scholarship as donated by Dwayne Barber and US Chess. So first place is like $12K. Some sweet change for these juniors.
I was going to say, in my day, the prize money was the opportunity to represent the US in the World Junior Championship. That was what we were playing for. But it's nice to see these players have a little money in their pocket, Maurice.
Absolutely. And I'd be curious. Jeffrey, I don't think probably has any intention of going to college anytime soon. He is trying to be the best player on the planet. I mean, that's his aspiration, and rightly so. Young 19-year-old, 2,700. He wants to make a leap, and I'm sure he's working as intensely as possible to make the leap from the low 2,700s, which of course is still fantastic, to the
Exactly.
high 2,700s, which will put him in the top five even in the
Right.
world. If he's 27, 90, 95, he's number 4 on the planet. I mean, that's what we're talking about. As Ding Loren's rating dropped, I believe, to 2790 off from his 2800 peak, that would put him in that realm. So he needs to figure out, guys, how am I going to get to that next tier? Can I make that breakthrough? Will he or won't he? It's very hard to say. We've got all these great youngsters these days. Alireza Firouzja, for example, playing magnificently well, but he has his eyes on being the best on the planet, or at least
And
among
just,
the best.
That's right.
yeah.
Now, you guys might notice the one player that is missing in this event, Wander Liang. He unfortunately had a scheduling conflict, something that he agreed to do before the dates come out for this event. But he will be back with us at the U.S. Chess Championships. And hey, I'm going to miss his smile, but we'll see him in a couple weeks.
Yes, absolutely. And as you were talking, Maurice, I was thinking about the Grand Chess Tour, and that's got to be Jeffrey's goal. If he can make it to the Grand Chess Tour, then he's really, really justified in missing the college university. And you mentioned he's the number 2 player in the world. The number 1 junior.
Number two
yes,
junior in the world.
The number 1 junior is Alireza Firouzja, who's tearing it up in Norway, leading a very elite field, including Magnus and Fabi.
These juniors are tough, man. These juniors are rough. It's not like the old days. And by the way, Jeffrey is the Sam is the number 5 junior on the planet
Right.
as well. So we're talking about some elite players in this event. And it's not just them, because we have a number of juniors in this event who are among the top 100 juniors in the world. So very powerful junior championship for this country.
But here's the thing, guys. Jeffrey Zhang might be the number 2 rated player in the world junior, but he's the number 1 rapid. And this is rapid chess. He's higher rated than Firouzja in rapid rating, which is something I think we noticed in the St. Louis Rapid and Blitz that he played. And that makes sense. I mean, Jeffrey's, plays a lot of blitz. He's, got one of the highest scores in history in Puzzle Rush. Like, he's got that kind of fast twitch brain, as most of the juniors do, but particularly Jeffrey. So he's up there. He's up there.
And by the way, Jeffrey was leading Magnus Carlsen in clutch chess. If you don't remember, that was rapid as well. He showed that he can swing with the best of them. He's got to be the pick. I mean, he's got to be the pick for this event.
And the moves have started.
The games have been underway for a few minutes, but unfortunately, in the game between John Burke and Jeffrey Zhang, what we thought would be our marquee matchup between these two grandmasters, we haven't seen any moves. So the game I'd like to go to is between Nicholas and Brandon. The reason I want to go to this particular game is because this is an opening, or rather a defense, that I cherished a lot. A lot of my opponents, I used to play the Queen's Gambit Accepted big time. And my opponents, to avoid the Queen's Gambit Accepted, oftentimes played against me knight f3, c5, d4. This very, very specific move order. And my games oftentimes continued exactly as did the game between Brandon and Nicholas. Now, my good opponents actually castled here, and I think that's a very important move. Nicholas, in view of the move e5, e4, played the automatic d2, d3, a very natural move, a move we all might play unthinkingly. And there's a problem, which I actually worked out very well myself. Bishop b4 check. This is an incredibly important check that really messes up White's position a lot. It's really surprising that after just 5 moves, White could seize a disadvantage after the move bishop b4 check. The problem is if you put your knight in the way of the bishop, it makes it that much harder to play the move e2, e3. And this is very important. For example, a5, a3, bishop back, castles, knight here. We're in a Benoni where e2, e3 is automatic. You play e2, e3, but you can't because your stupid knight is in the way and the pawn on d3 hangs. You'll end up having to play some goofy move like knight g5. If you play as in the game, bishop d2, and this is very important by Brandon, he realizes the necessity for playing a7, a5. Now, once again, if you play at a kind of a Benoni-like move like a3, the bishop can drop back anywhere, c5, d6, e7. I'm just picking a square. And once again, it's very awkward to get in e2, e3. And the knight on b1 is saying, excuse me, what is my role? So it's a very intriguing opening that after only 5 moves, bishop b4 check, bishop d2, I actually prefer Black's position in 5 moves, and White hasn't done anything optically wrong.
Interesting that if you continue the game, though, a couple of moves in, he did remove his bishop from that d2 square with the move bishop to g5 and can now start thinking about the same idea. This is going to be an interesting battle. Look at another one that has taken on incredibly sharp angles is the game between Christopher Yu and the number 2 seed, Sam Sevian, the youngest player in the event, and Sam. And if you look at the way this opening transpired, just right out the gate, this was sharp. You know, people say D4, D5 can be boring. Yeah, what's the big deal? But look at this, Queen B3 in this Rogozin, it looked like to start with Bishop G5 on the board, C5 in response to Queen B3. That's a sharp line there. And now Bishop to G5, quickly met by Knight C6. And they've been banging out moves, by the way. Knight C6 takes, banging out the moves. Takes on C5, takes on C4, trades. And now this move, Queen A5, saying, I don't care if you crack my pawn structure on F6 and go after my pawn on F6. I don't care. I'm going to go for your C5 pawn. And now Queen H4 attacking the F6 pawn. And look at this next move, King E7, nestling in on the E7 square. White, just about instantly played the move G3, ignoring everything, saying, I'm just going to develop pieces normally, like nothing happened.
Well, I just got a shout out from Varuzhan Akopian, and he said that there's been 44 games played in this position, and that must be why Christopher is moving so fast.
Absolutely. The theory in this line, but it just goes to show these players are so prepared. But you've got a young Christopher Yu, 13 years old, and we see him on camera there. I haven't seen him play, but I'm watching him, and it's only 13 moves and how many minutes? Maybe 5 minutes into the game, and he's bouncing and going back and forth. Wow, this, some players have that California cool. We see Magnus do it. We the stoic look of a Jeffrey Zhang. We have a bit of an emotional, I don't know what you might call it, mover on our screen.
Some people get excited. I'm a bit like
a bouncer. That might be a better word.
Bouncy. He's excited, and the good thing about playing online is you're not distracting your opponent. So if you want to like bounce a little bit in your chair, move your head around, it's not like Sam's getting distracted, right?
Right, exactly.
So there are some benefits, I guess, to playing from the privacy of your home. Now, speaking of homes, Sevian's background is gorgeous. It looks like some set designer worked on it. I just wish I knew who that beautiful portrait was of behind him.
Exactly.
that's a nice
artwork.
It really is.
We're getting some nice artwork there. I have to ask him about it. Now, in the meanwhile, Sam is actually the one burning clock, and it's Christopher, as you mentioned, Maurice, who's just been, triggered. He's pushing out his moves, and Sam is actually wondering, okay, he's setting his own internal clock, like, what am I supposed to do? I've got 3 pieces that I need to develop, and should I be going on a long diagonal? Should I be playing bishop d7 and developing my rooks? Should I be taking advantage or trying to take advantage of the fact that this queen is maybe a little bit away from the action? It's not on d2, for example, and this rook is hanging. And after spending some minutes, he decided that, well, yeah, why not press matters on the queen side? And he hit the rook with queen a3.
Well, Verusian should let us know what's happening here, as Christopher has either forgotten his preparation or has never seen this move, queen a3, because maybe it's a novelty and is wondering what's the deal. I mean, the most obvious move on the board is rook to c2. Just move the rook, guard everything, guard your a pawn, keep the queen from being able to make any incursions. That seems like the most obvious move. c3 is hanging if you move the rook away, and your queen could go to f4 and try to come back home, but that seems like, okay, it does seem like an alternate. e5 would be a kick followed by a bishop entering the fray at f5. So I think rook c2 looks, in my estimation, as the best move, and it looks like he's eventually did settle on the move. But as you said, he blitzed out, literally blitzed out his first few moves. Now this rook on c2, if it remains stable, bishop goes to g2, castles, it's going to be somebody's king in the middle of the board. I mean, and it's not going to be white's.
Yeah. And this move, queen a3, by the way, VAR says is very rare, only played twice. So the fact that Christopher is still banging out moves really shows something. And now, wow, well, I'm getting seasick a little bit there as he's really moving now.
Right. I like rook c2. Indeed, Maurice, it's the most natural move on the board. You attack my rook, you attack my pawn, I move my rook and I protect my pawn. No question about it. But I was actually thinking that the queen is actually misplaced on a3. And I'm like, go ahead, put your queen on a3 for all it's worth. Yes. I really like queen h6. The idea behind queen h6 is, yes, you're absolutely right. I'm telegraphing bishop g2, castles. But once I get my queen over here to h6, I just introduce just a little bit more of a tug against black's king side with the move queen g7. Also, with my queen posted up on h6, it means that that king, if it ever had any ideas of maybe scurrying back to the king side, I don't know exactly how, but if it had such plans, they're kaput. And so
that would have been a sacrificial line. Yes, you'd have to prove queen a2 would be a nothing concept. Not saying you do it necessarily immediately, but
sure,
because e2 will hang later as well. So after bishop d7, there is a bit of bridge burning going on in this particular line. So clearly a sharp line that he decided, well, not today, maybe later, but not today, to risk giving away material for some compensation. Now, this move to me, e5, is also a worry I have against the move. Queen 5 is a disturbing move. I mean, it will create some issues. Now, is it really great when I play the move e4 against you at some point, e4 attacking the bishop? Maybe that's not a real threat, so we can play for bishop g2 and keep the ideas going. This position is sharp, and I think the durability of that king on the e7 square is going to be a factor. Black is going to have to aim for something like h5, rook g8, rook g4 kind of action. That's going to be sharp. Folks, we're out the gate with some heat right away here in these U.S. Junior Championships.
Absolutely. I also I don't like being disturbed by the move bishop f5. I like my pawn on the e2 square because I want to utilize the e4 square, maybe for a knight maneuver, maybe because I want my bishop diagonal to be open. So I would probably temporize with a move like bishop h3, stopping bishop f5 for the time being. You mentioned also, Maurice, that a rook might show up on g4. Well, I'll nip that idea in the bud before it's even born.
Kid played it, yes. Kid challenged you, and he played it. It's on the board.
Exactly. And if you trade bishops, that helps me bring a knight to the unbelievably powerful f5 square. So I like the move bishop h3, and Sam is under pressure out of the get-go, our number 2 seed. uh, under under duress a little bit. Let's take a look at John and Jeffrey, as we do have some moves in that game. It looks like an Alekhine. Now, you both are kind of E4 players. What's your impressions of the Alekhine?
I was always annoyed by it. Always annoyed. I never felt like I could get what I really wanted against the Alekhine. Never had a big line against it. Managed to draw Yermolinsky with it in the U.S. Championship, the one I played in. But I have a good friend, Willie Johnson, who loves him some Alekhine defense. Like he'll just tell you everything about it. He learned it from Lev Albert, who you used to play.
Absolutely.
Very much so, who was a specialist in the Alekhine, and he could just quote any line. You don't even vary one iota, because he'll say, that's not book. Come on. What are you doing? You better be making up some great novelty, because that's not in the book anywhere. And I always found it very difficult, especially since most people never played it. And I think that it's a good line if you want to play for a win with black. We've seen Shabalov use it on occasion as well.
Sure.
Yeah,
So
and
Jeffrey
has
We've
played
seen
it
Magnus,
also
yes.
in the St. Louis Rapid and Blitz, indeed. And I think that to answer Yaz's question,
Sure.
if I was ready for the Alekhine, I was excited to play against it. Like if I knew my opponent was going to play it, so I could prepare.
Right.
But people just use the Alekhine as a surprise weapon, right? So that's always hard, because it seems, and I think one of the things is also psychological, that you feel like white should have a bigger edge than usual when they play the Alekhine.
Right.
And so it's easy to get frustrated when your position's just okay.
Exactly. And the only player I really in the elite was Lev Albert, who you mentioned there, Maurice, who played it consistently, and was his number one defense. A couple of players, Nigel Short, Magnus Carlsen, Vasil Ivanchuk, they've
That's a good list.
Yeah, that's a good list of names, right? So Shabalov also got a mention there. So, I mean, a lot of really
you can or can't hear us at the moment, it's because there is a little bit of technical stuff going on. But nevertheless, we will continue. And we are back. Indeed, we are back. There was some technical difficulties. Indeed, the ghost is in the machine, everyone. Never know when it's going to happen, as we have been working on it. But we've been enjoying the game. And now this move, Rook a d8 by Sam. Exciting position, but yeah, as you said, you wanted to take us to another position.
I did. It was absolutely crazy. Game was going on between Bryce and Josh, and I just even it looked like it came from an advanced Caro-Kann. It did indeed, and the short defense. And I'm looking at the game between Bryce and Josh, and this move G7 G5. Okay, I was the women's Olympic team captain in Baku in Azerbaijan, and one of our ladies, Katya, played against the G7 G5 variation and won a beautiful game. So I actually have good memories of this line for white, and even though I'm a Caro-Kann player.
Well, also, if you move forward a little bit, you'll see that as we see the live board on the screen, white is also up a pawn.
He played the move H4, exactly, Jen.
Yeah.
To undermine the G5 pawn, which he ended up capturing. And this is where we're up to date on. And this looks like not just an extra pawn, but it's a pawn with relish, because after a move like knight G4, it's another unusual construction, Maurice. Two bishops fending off these two knights, but these two knights look really good. And again, it's a pawn in the pocket for white.
That's what I was going to say. Your knights look really good when you're up material as well.
Yeah, so, exactly.
I mean, and the reality is they cannot be kicked out. I mean,
right. No H6, no H5.
You never see knights on G4 and G5. Just think about that. Right. Knights on G4 and G5. I don't have to do a bit of research to see how many times this has happened in chess history, and especially when there are no pawns and the G file or H file for black as well. I can assure you this doesn't happen regularly in chess. This is a wild, strange distribution, a disturbance in the force on black's position.
It is very difficult to imagine this being good for black, because it's not just the knights. I mean, the thing normally Yaz is the one pounding the table for the extra pawn, but this is like more than a pawn, guys. This is also like a really key pawn. Normally, like I sacrifice something to rip open like one of your pawns defending your king, right? Like get rid of H7 or get rid of G7. Now they're just both gone, and you have no material compensation for it. You're actually down a pawn here. This looks fantastic for white after knight G4.
If you could only put a queen on G3, I'm always fantasizing about where my pieces belong. Mm-hmm. Put a queen on G3, you'd have a massive lineup on the G file.
Well, slow burn.
One for history that simply, I don't know that's ever occurred in chess history. In fact, the insane setup. The bishop on G6, the bishop on G7, two knights on the G line like this. The knight on G5 is easy to envision, but on G4 as well, wild, very interesting, just from a curiosity standpoint. But it does look as though white is just dominating here. I mean, how can it be any other way? Where's the counterplay for black?
I like your idea though of playing like queen D2, queen F4, queen H2. Slow, but somehow we need to get that monarch over to the king side, and it doesn't. What other route do we have, right? Like that seems like a decent one. Maybe E3 to H3, queen D2, queen E3, queen H3.
Well, the trick is, what does black do? If you're looking at this from white's perspective, you say, what is black's next move or next two moves? Queen B6 to try to attack this pawn. I could maybe play bishop to B2 so that I can keep my threat of bringing the queen up and over. What do you call that, Jen? You call the rook up and over a rover. What do you call the queen up and over? A quover? Doesn't sound quite as elegant, but that could be a possibility as well. And then black
maybe
has
quiver, queen quiver. That sounds good, doesn't it?
Quiver.
Queen quake.
We got to work on that one. Let's try to get the right one. Let's try to get the right phrase, but the right terminology, because it will stick. When you make up a nice term like rover, it ends up sticking. So this one looks like it's all white, but what I'm really interested in is back to the game with the youngster between Christopher Yu and Sam Sevian. And there were a lot of maneuvers made, and it's still that knight dying to go to f5. And boy, lucky for Sam at the moment, there's no way to just break into his position with a pawn break of some kind. But you just feel like clouds, dark clouds, are hanging over his position, but potentially.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of decisive games I think we're going to get in this first round. What do you see here, Yaz, for Sam? What's your prognosis? Oh, I think maybe after e4, maybe we need to try to play, because my king is so terrible in the center of the board, and knight f5 check looks like it's coming with a bang. So I certainly want to try to chase your queen with something like queen g4.
It looks like we've lost Yasser for the moment.
That's why I didn't let him answer my question.
Man, we have some weird stuff going on. Is Dr. Seirawan? We need him because this is your kind of sweet positional grind, Yasser, where you just flick the right moves in and get him on his back foot. And I'm really liking White's game right now.
Heck yeah, as he's setting up his sound. I was mentioning the move queen g4. And one thing I will not do is let you trade queens in this position with your king on e7, right? Because the king in the center could be good in the end game, but in the middle game, it's treacherous. So you play queen g4, luckily for White, or not just luckily, by design. I do have one square to avoid the queen trade, and I'll take it in an instant. I'll play queen e3, and I don't know, Maurice. I mean, maybe Sam will have to play something like rook g8. But hey, one of the top seeds looks to be in serious trouble.
Absolutely. And the king has nowhere to go. The king wishes, in the best case, that it was sitting on the b7 square. Because if you've got to sit on f8 and disconnect your rooks, you could really end up being in a lot of trouble in that position. And so knight f5 looks great. Also, what I like is the potential to play the move f4 if I'm White and put both my rooks on the f file. That's a danger that's brewing in the position as well. I'm seeing a lot of arrows in that analysis board. That must be Yasser's screen that's frozen for the moment. He's got all the ideas. He's like, hit him all kinds of different ways in this position, with knight f5 check just being a boss-looking move. But Christopher seems to be holding that move back for the moment, at least. And the time is a lot closer than it was before, as we could expect, as he's trying to figure out exactly what he needs to do in the position.
And he has started with queen e3. Interesting. So he did choose that move to kick it off with queen d7 immediately from Sam, who doesn't want to get in time pressure to exacerbate his tough position on the board.
You also didn't want to see rook d2 happen, but what do you do about the move knight f5? And by the way, while that's happening, we need to get back to Bryce and Josh's game, because something explosive happened on the board. Absolutely huge, as Black sacrificed a piece after knight c6. He played knight h3 and knight d4 happened with a bang. That was not, I'm not sure that's what he had planned or he had seen this line coming, because he's just dropped bishop a3 on the board as well.
So in fact, it's now Black who's up material, right? So Black temporarily sacrificed on d4 to get bishop takes e5, taking a second pawn, and we'll know that Yasser's sound is working again when he starts getting excited about that. But more importantly, you're also gaining the rook on a1, which is undefended. So it's not just an exchange, you're taking that rook. So materially, Black is up an exchange and a pawn. But guess what? The king is still weak, Maurice. I mean, this is still not out of the woods yet for Black at all. Like bishop a3 and knight f4. I still think White has some very big attacking chances, but that move knight h3 was weird.
Definitely a mistake, going in the wrong direction. Can't understand why he didn't play knight g4. And taking on f8 is white just getting the material back. He said, look, I got to get something back. I'm down a pawn. I did blunder my material advantage. This is not something he wanted to see happen on the board. Black now has the two bishops, that beautiful dark square bishop. We were basically putting Josh in the coffin a few moves ago. Now white's the one that's begging for the dirt not to be put on him, as he's found himself down material for zero reason. He just missed this tactic of knight takes on d4.
Yeah, I think that he must have missed knight d4, right? Because that's what happens sometimes when all the trumps in the position are yours, right? You have all the good things in your position, so you forget about your opponent's counterplay. And I think that's what Josh fell prey to in this game. But, I mean, Bryce,
why would he play knight? Why would he play knight h? Why not knight g4 looks so good?
Knight f4 now, though. If queen takes f8, knight f4, white still has compensation, right? He's down a pawn, but your king is still exposed. And how are you going to deal with that attack on your bishop on g6?
I got knight e5, hitting your queen, guarding the bishop.
Yeah, then I have to play queen g3.
Yeah, you still have work to do to prove that you have anything. And at the moment, it's still a pawn. And of course, this is not going to be easy because of the exposure of Black's king. There's going to be potential chances. But once the rook gets to the c file, starts to come into the game, shut down your most aggressive possibilities, especially now that knight e5, queen g3 gains a tempo, rook c8, rook is coming to c3. This is not going to be any kind of bed of roses. White is going to have to try his best to breathe in, admit the blunder, and say, you know what? I screwed up. That's what happened. How do I get my head back in this game, in this position? Because he's in a world of trouble. Now, speaking of potential trouble, we see in the game again, we keep coming back to this like a broken record with Christopher Yu and Sam Sevian. Christopher, he's not wasting any time. I mentioned that idea of f4, and he is going for it. Breaking open the position with f4, going after Sam, saying, I'm not intimidated. I know you're the number 5 junior on the planet. Yeah. You're 2650. Right, sure, whatever. I'm only 13. Okay, I'm a little kid, I know. How about this move right here? Bam, f4. Let's go for it. I want to double rooks on the f file, and I want to come get you. This is a precocious youngster indeed, looking for his chances, and he has doubled rooks on the f file. I'm not liking it. I'm smelling an upset in the making, guys.
Absolutely. I mean, the question is the timing, because you want to make sure that when you take on e5, you have the right timing, because that knight on e5 could be powerful. But the problem is there's also the pressure on the f7 pawn. So pawn e5, knight g6 is an immediate threat that just wins the game. So queen d3 played, obviously. We do not want to trade queens as white, right? Unless we're winning a boatload of material. So I predict queen c1 looks like the right move, because it also looks at that a3 diagonal, which could gain a tempo. Queen e1 also, I mean, just keeping those queens on the board and renewing the threats of taking on e5. How do you stop it?
Well, the thing about this last move is he kept his e-pawn alive. So he's playing zero risk chess. This is, I know Yasser is just crying that his audio is not working right now, because this is the kind of attack where Yasser says, I'm sacking nothing. I have all the edges, and this is how I beat people up all day long. Like, what do you do as Black? Your rooks are split. Your king's exposed on the f8 square. Black is got a queen on d3, but what else? What are you going to do with it? Nothing. Your knight can only come in the game if White says it's coming in the game by capturing on e5. The potential of a pawn hitting the pawn on f6 dropping is just exponential right now. I don't even know how you're going to save this pawn. f7's hanging. Knight g. I mean, I'm seeing too many threats, and White hasn't sacrificed anything yet. White has sacrificed zero for this position.
It's really looking horrific. I mean, right now, pawn takes e5 seems to be a really devastating threat. So Black has to do something to prevent that from just winning the game. So we have to defend f7, right? Or we have to have enough tactics so that if pawn e5, knight e5, we're not that worried about rook takes f6. So rook d6 played.
Why should this position, though? I mean, why should white be afraid? I understand it's not going to be that easy, but I'm of the Gary Kasparov school that says you got to give something to get something. Now, the Karpovian school, the Petrosian school, they give you nothing. You get nothing while I'm squeezing you to death. But the other school, the more aggressive type, the Tal school, the Kasparov school, says you get a knight on e5. I admit that's dynamic, but I am going to show that I have more firepower than you do. So f takes e5 is something I think that white will want to do, even though a knight lands on the e5 square, because black is just simply going to be bereft of opportunities to really attack white, while it's going to be the reverse for the other way. Now, aren't we winning a pawn right now with taking on e5? That's got to be calculated immediately. Takes on e5, and takes on e5, and then takes on f6. I don't really want to trade off pieces, but that does look like.
I think the only worry for me is white is I don't even want to trade into a pawn up endgame. I'm sorry, Yasser. He shivers going down his spine because I want to checkmate black. So like suppose knight e5, rook f6, knight g4.
I'm with you. Yeah, even if we win material, it's no fun. But it's the safety line. That's the safety line. Now I did like knight f5. In that position, actually. Knight f5 looks strong as well.
Knight f5 instead of snatching the pawn. So my concern was after rook f6, that after knight g4, you'd get a little queen e3 business going on and trade off the queens.
That's not attractive at all.
Yeah, but I'm not mating you, so I had my hopes.
You're not mating, but that's not attractive, like at all. Why? Who wants to go into a queen ending where you're in deep trouble? You're just bailing into a technical affair where white's the one who's better. By the way, who says you even get this endgame? Knight g4, rook f3 lands on the board. You don't get a check, right?
So, and just to clarify, if knight g6, what happens? If knight g6, the problem is we just move our king, and then when you take our rook on h8, we take your rook on f6.
Yeah, no, that's not.
Yeah, that's not good. Okay.
Just yet. So now he's played king to e7. Man, he's asking for it. King e7. I just want to play rook f5. And you can't play f6 because I'll take it and play knight g6. So I want to play rook f5 and ask you what you do with your knight. By the way, black is one tempo away from getting his rook in the game. So he's just a move away. So we don't want him to get any chance. We don't want to breathe just yet. There's also an idea. No, rook f2 is not what I want to do because you're going to play rook to d8. And maybe he might even play rook c8 to try to get his counterplay against this pawn on c3. So we need to keep harassing black. Rook f5 would be my suggestion in this position. White, by the way, the youngster, 13 years old, with a 2-result game if he's careful. If he goes into a boring position, he doesn't lose. If he slips up, he might give Sevian a chance, but this is White's game to control how the rest of this goes and whether or not he gets the draw in his pocket or he wins the game.
Rook f5 is a funny move in a way because we've been dying to get our knight on f5 all game, and now we're like we're taking that square for our rook instead. But you're right; it's that concrete reality that you can't play f6 to protect the knight, and if you can't do that, it's very troublesome because if you move the knight away, rook d5, and suddenly I'm trading places. I'm getting the best of both worlds. I put my rook on d5 and my knight on f5, and that's just going to be the end of the world.
You know, there's a complex line there, by the way. Rook f5, we could win after f6. We could win the rook in the corner, but the knight might get trapped in the corner, and we'd find ourselves in a queen ending. That might not be as good as we want it to be, and rook f5 on the board, but that would be a deep defensive line. As I see Yasser's face is back in the picture, I'm hoping his audio is back. Yasser, we've been dying to get. Oh, there you go. Here's Dr. Seirawan, and this position Sir, I mean, you've been
Yes.
silent long enough.
Ah.
This one feels like your touches are needed. Something silky, smooth to really put Black out of his misery.
Yeah, it feels like there should be an absolute KO, but I don't see it. And you mentioned yourself, Maurice, that there is this very clever way of losing a piece, but somehow, miracle of miracles, getting yourself into a queen ending. Um, well,
But what about
it's
Queen
not a
F?
knockout.
What about Queen F2 here with the idea that we're gonna take a but now we can extricate our knight, right? With knight F7.
Is
Can
that
you?
true? There are going to be some checkies in the building. Queen B, and then Queen back, and your king is not going anywhere.
Yeah, and I can never play Queen F3, huh?
Well, you might be able
Well,
to play
you
queen
might
F3.
be able to. You'll have the outside passer in that position.
I have to calculate that pawn.
But
Right.
you would have to calculate it.
And Sam played the alternative to F7, F6. Sam played King E6. He said, okay, let me defend my knight with my king. That's leading with your chin, to be sure. Let me defend the knight with my king.
Man,
Okay, well, that seems like a very bold move. I'm dying to find an attacking possibility here. For
I know. You want to play like...
It does allow knight F3 check.
Exactly.
I'm wondering about getting my queen in, like queen. I want to go like queen C1 and pop a queen into G5 or something like that. But hey, there's play on both goals. That's the problem, right?
Mm-hmm.
That King E6 move is really extraordinary.
What is that? What do you call it? Gangster chess? I mean,
yes,
King
absolutely.
E6, like,
in
look
your
at this
face.
Wow.
Well, what about Queen C1 though? Because is Queen E4 too greedy? I mean, Queen E4 would be the one thing that I'd be afraid of, right?
Exactly.
If you don't have that, then I am coming into H6 with check, right? Like you can't play Rook D8 anymore.
And look at Chris. Chris is bouncing now. He's like, woo, get him.
Okay, but Queen H6 here. So after Queen E4, Queen G5. Queen G5. So I was saying if you move your rook, I always have Queen H6 winning the game. But what about Queen G5? Is the problem you just check me to death or something? I don't see a lot of good Queen B1. Check. Queen B1 might be good to stay on the light squares, but you prefer E1, yes?
I don't know.
Rook F1 doesn't stop all checks. I don't understand why.
Okay,
checks don't lead anywhere.
Right. That's the weirdness, right? Like I don't know where to put my rook. Let me just pick a crazy square for a moment.
But Queen F6 check now, right?
I guess you can.
Oh, you're just going to D5. Okay.
Talk about gangster chess.
I know, running up the board.
Maybe knight F3 could be a calm winning move there.
He played
that
rook
final position.
F1. By the way, he just dropped back with his rook, just saying that, well, I want to play Queen F2 and Queen F5, Queen F6 ideas.
I love this move.
You like it?
I love this move. Very practical move on his part. Guess what? You can give away the pawn as white in this position. Give away one if your positional advantage transforms and then endures. You could give away a pawn. You just have to be very careful that king does not finally end up on B7. That is the biggest danger here, is that somehow the king gets over there. But he's looking to play Queen F2 and Queen F6. And if you can end up on B7, if I damage everything else, I win the H pawn and consolidate into a winning endgame when my H pawn is running down the board. But this kind of play is very mature on the part, very practical as well. And Sam down to just 3:43 on the clock in that position. So it's not looking good. Not looking good for him. Also not looking good for Jeffrey Zhang as white pieces. If this is the Alekhine, yeah, I'm going to follow this guy because John Burke is hunting Jeffrey. Look at these gorgeous pieces that white has in this position.
Sure does. I mean, the knight on E5 is a dream. Bishop on D4, the doubled queen on E3, rook E1, and by the way, rook on C7, really bothersome. You start to think, hey, does knight F7 it produced the goods. The problem, as I see it, is this knight on d6 is absolutely stuck. You don't want to see a d5, d6 opening up this bishop. So a lot of dangers in the position for Jeffrey, and white on the move. I mean, it just, sorry, I shouldn't go too far back as time troubles is coming up. I feel like there ought to be a knockout move.
Knight of 7. I mean, Knight of 7 is the feeling. I mean, Knight of 7 says is screaming to be played somehow. It feels like I've seen something like this before, but I don't see what the finish line is just yet. And he's played rook back to c1. That's not it. I'm going to tell you, whatever it was, it's not rook back to c1.
No, it's not.
That's not the one. That you're not going to see that in his best games.
I was about to say, I really like the move g2, g4 for a number of reasons. Number one, it wins a tempo. It's a very nice thing to do, is win a tempo. I like that move. Secondly, I like making luft on the king. And last, and certainly not least, the knight, by kicking away the bishop, the knight will never land on f5. Now, there might be some reason that he was afraid of playing the move g4, but g4 would have, rook c1, no, not on your life. I would never have played rook c7. He just actually played rook c7 and, oops, excuse me, and back.
That sequence could have turned things around and given black some opportunity to defend. By the way, the bishop could now end up on the e4 square if attacked, and then the d pawn will straight hang. So rook c1 was a practical move. He didn't see what to do. Why didn't he play h3 instead of rook c1? If you're going to make a move, just waste the move with h3. G4, if you didn't see g4, which I think is a really good move because bishop e4 could have been met by f3, it looks like.
Exactly.
So
trapping the bishop in that
trapping the bishop on the square. So I really love it. Forget knight f7, what I said. That g4 looks like looked like would have been a serious problem. But this move,
rook c1,
soft move in h3, queen b5. I don't think, and now f3. Wow, that time pressure is really coming to roost in that position.
He was afraid that black was ready to just go bishop e4 and snap off the d5 pawn. So f2, f3, not a good combination of moves, f3 and h3. And bishop c2, and Jeffrey beginning to feel like, hey, the tide has turned. I've weathered the storm. I'm about to play knight f5, attacking the queen and the bishop. By the way, another nice benefit suddenly of this bishop c2 is bishop b3 could be an awkward move to meet.
By the way,
definitely a big swing in this game. Sorry, Jen. Yeah.
I just wanted to say that the game between Christopher Yu and Sam Sevian rages on, and the position is getting wilder as queen remains on the board. We just saw the move. The king went to after king e7. White had this choice between playing knight f5 check and knight c6. So he played knight to c6. But my concern now is that we're forced to trade queens, which I was hoping to avoid. Maybe not. Maybe.
Let's see you do it.
I'm just thinking if king d7, then aren't you going to be forced to trade queens?
No, 95 check.
95
check wakes you up. So king d7 is not playable.
King d, okay. Well, that's why he played it then. And the problem is king d7, 95, queen d2. You just lost a queen. And if we play king d6, you have rook f6 check.
That's right, rook f6. And by the way, note that there's starting to be these end games, material issues in end games that could happen. He's played king d6. What's wrong with taking on d2, rook f6, king c7, take on d2, and then take the a7 pawn. And then f7's hanging with check.
Yeah, but we didn't win in, we won some pawns.
You want more.
You're getting a chance to take some pawns too, right?
I suspect that king c7 may be an error. I think Sam, after rook f6 check, is likely to play king c5. The king is, strangely enough, actually safe on the c5 square.
And how do we keep our queens on the board here? Because why I want to try to, I don't want to go into the end game and just win a couple of pawns. You win e4 and c3. Like
No. That's not going to happen.
I'd rather keep my queen on the board, like play queen b1 or something like that with the queen b4 mate threat.
Yeah, well, I think the attack would have been quite compelling, in fact, to play for this line with rook f6. But he's decided instead to play knight a7. He is going without any risk once again. But this allowing the move, he's up 2 pawns, but allowing rook to a8, forcing rook, pretty much forcing knight to b5 with check, king c5 hitting the knight. It's going to be a very active position suddenly for black. Is rook's going to land on a2, even if you play knight d4, which looks natural. He's played king e5 even, saying, play your next move, your knight. I mean, but wait, this move does seem strange. King e5 does not allow rook to e2? What's the magic here? Why would you put your king on e5?
Wow, I didn't even realize it was possible. Sam may have overplayed his hand, not realizing that the simple rook e2, a moment ago, the rook was landing on a2, and I suddenly thought, oh, black's not going to lose that position with the active rook, the active knight, and the active king. King e5, rook e2, excuse me. Where's the magic indeed, Maurice?
I mean,
Rook
even
A5.
if he's instead decided to go after the c3 pawn. But even if you get this position, what was wrong with getting the one with the king on c5 and the rook on e2?
Exactly.
So attractive.
Exactly. And here, well, 2 pawns. Okay, I agree that there's a bind on the queen side and this pawn is weak, but 2 pawns, you really think that white should have a near winning advantage here?
No losing chances. No losing chances first.
Certainly not.
In his pocket. Christopher has the draw in his pocket against the number 5 junior on the planet. He's 13 years old. If he wants to play knight b5 and repeat, he has that. The question is, what will he do with only 1 minute and 5 seconds left on the clock?
Exactly.
Oh, wow. I think he's going to keep pressing here. I mean, there's nothing to lose, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, you could lose on time, so I shouldn't say that.
He played for me what was a pretty obvious choice as well. Since the rook was attacking the pawn, he defended it, blocked it with knight b3, and instantly, by the way, came Sam's retort, knight to d6. He's not threatening to take this pawn because I'll have knight d2, but Sam's intention is to play knight c5. Oops, rook, knight d2, rook c3. He let him in, and we have king f2 on the board. So now only a 1 pawn advantage.
He was probably going to lose this pawn because of f5 eventually, but this position, if you have to play it, you say, I got it, I'm up a pawn. And I'm not trading knights. You can fantasize about the rook and pawn endgame. Although there's a rook, there is one. No, I don't want to see a rook and pawn endgame. I want to play knight f3 and ask you where you're putting your king.
Right, just kick the king
away. But
he did
trade and going for rook b2, which again is the no losing chances variation. But I got to say, this is starting to look more and more like it could be a draw, guys.
Yeah, definitely. Do you guys want to check out some other games?
Sure.
There are time scrambles all around. First of all, we haven't even looked at all at the other Christopher's game, Christopher Shen playing against Praveen Balakrishnan, and doesn't look good for the other Christopher at all in this event. As look at those 2 major pieces in not that game.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but you know when there's a sacrifice, it's got to be a sacrifice alert. And in the game with Jeffrey and John, there is some spice going on right now. As we were talking about knight f7 many moves ago, look at the board now is inflamed. So, well, okay, it liquidated quite rapidly. I had such a funny position to talk about, but if you just go back a couple of moves, you'll see what I'm talking about right here. Just make the next couple of moves, knight f5, queen e4, knight g3, queen e1, rook takes d5, and after this trade, bam, on F7, 2 knights hanging, the Desperado sack. But in just a couple of moves, things liquidated, and we're now in this position, which Black can now say, I
have good winning chances.
I'm the one. I'm the one who's trying to win this position. Big Absolutely. Turn of events. Knight F7 played a bit too late.
Yes. And he has clipped them. In Queen and Pawn endings, and you want to ask who has the advantage, you always look to who has the most dangerous pawn. And by clipping this A3 pawn, Black has the most dangerous passive. This pawn on A4 is a real danger of just running for promotion. So no question that it's Jeffrey in the driver's seat. But can he bring the point home? I mean, Queen and Pawn endgames are notoriously fickle. Very, very difficult to say. I like his chances if he avoids a perpetual check.
Meantime, Chris and Sam Sevian do look as though it should be a technically drawn endgame afoot there, but it's white if anybody who's thinking about doing anything in this position. But we would predict that one to be a draw. Meantime, the other game too, Bryce and Josh.
Crazy game.
We had said this one was Black for choice after all those sacrifices. Black was up material. White has won back the material in what just looks like a chaotic position. I like Black's bishop for sure. No question about it. And White's activity. But you can't call this one with only 12 seconds left on the clock for White. Oh boy, maybe I can call this one. It's going to be hard not to blunder in this position.
And meanwhile, Praveen looks like he's about to force resignation against Christopher Shen. That game is just completely dominant. Black is up a number of pawns and is also about to checkmate Christopher as well. Looks like a very smooth performance by Praveen.
It does indeed. It looks like Black has certainly got this game in the bag. He can capture on E3 and just trade down everything. And then he really will be quite a number of pawns.
He'll be up 4 pawns, yeah.
I'm happy with one, right?
Final trick, King H1 on the board. Hope the guy doesn't see it in time pressure. Take my rook on C1, please, just do it.
King F8. What a strange move. Boy,
he actually played G6 in this position.
Oh, okay. So, talk about a ghost in the machine. I was about to say, why don't you play G6? And he did, in fact, play G6.
He did, and he's just
now we can
rolling.
We can just take on E3. Nice finish, because rook takes E3. There's a queen, and queen takes E3.
Nicely done.
Take and queen, and this is a nice win. Rook E1 check, ushering a second queen, and there it is. Praveen has won his game. Let's go back to Bryce and Josh.
Exactly.
By the way, there's a draw. I don't know if we said it, but there was a draw in the game between Cheka and Jacobson. So that game ended. We have one result in the books there.
Right. We just turned our eye for just a flash. And now Josh is completely winning, as somehow he managed to win like all the pawns on the queen side, and pushing his pawns through is Josh. He's about ready to go A4 and D4, and 3 pawns to the good.
That one's over. Sam and Christopher. Sam was able to stop the U train, as Christopher was not able to convert that position. Heroic defense by Sam, by the way. I have to say, I thought he was going to die a lot sooner, but he managed to come up with some enterprising moves, particularly his king marching up the board. That saved him. And so that game looks like we have a result, even though I see the 2 players are still sitting there. Why does it say that we have a draw?
Where's that?
Am I missing?
They're just...
Why? We see the players, they're still sitting there, though. Maybe they're just watching. Maybe just watching other games as well. That's what they're doing. As they're very curious about what happens, particularly in the Jeffrey Jean game, as Jeffrey could take an early lead, which is not what Sam wants to see happen. His main rival winning against a very strong, powerful John Burke, while the youngster holding holding Sam to a draw. That's a bad start for Sam. He survived, but he's still got to be thinking, I should be beating the kid, not letting that point slip away.
But I think right now,
Exactly.
survival should be something he's happy with. That position looked terrible. And he
Indeed.
found some good moves to keep himself in the game, like King E6.
Exactly.
But
He
Jeffrey
probably.
now looking great. And by the way, it looks like we're going to have potentially, if Jeffrey wins this game, 3 decisive games, all with the black pieces.
Whoa, that's remarkable. A4, A3. I understand the desire to push the pawn, but also I like queen takes C3. Jeffrey's got his own technique, but okay, he did capture the pawn on C3. Now I think he's definitely winning this comfortably. No chances whatsoever of a perpetual check by white. It's easy to cover the king. Any further checks, we can put our pawn in the way, B5. And Jeffrey should win. Quite an up and down struggle, I want to say.
It did seem as though he was in trouble. That rook C1 was definitely soft early in the game. Not the kind of move you want to play, obviously. But it is now in the driver's seat. It's hard to beat these guys, these 2,700 players, even if they're only 19 years old, maybe especially if they're only 19, because they're so resourceful and optimistic, if you will.
But Queen D4 check. Queen D4
and there
check.
it is. Game over. Jeffrey winning. And looks like John is in a state of shock because he knows he had a great position.
He sure did. And again, when we saw a time just, excuse me, it was a round move. Early, right here. What was it? Something. He got his rook right here. You really had the feeling that white was in control. We liked the move G2, G4 to press the initiative. And somehow from this position, well, Jeffrey took over as John played it, frankly, too passively. The move Rook C1 was, as you said it, Maurice, a step in the wrong direction.
You know, it's funny. I just turned on the engine and it gives G4, bishop takes G4.
Oh.
Whoa, what?
Yep.
Okay. That would have been a wait.
A serious
knight
wake-up call.
F5.
Knight F5.
F5.
Forking king and queen.
Bishop and queen, yes.
That's
Forking bishop and queen, sorry.
And stopping knight H6 check if you were thinking that the knight just got to G4 to do some. That's an amazing.
I know. They look so good to play this move. And it turns out that it was a mistake. And the agent's giving H3 of all moves as the best move in the position. What a shame that there was nothing there. It doesn't even give much for white.
Well, great variation. But let's take a look at the standings as we finish out our first game here in the junior, and it's going to be a crazy event. Jeffrey Zhang, Praveen Balakrishnan, and Joshua Shang all start out with that big 1 point, as there's plenty of tournament left to go. But Carissa Yip got her championship title with 7.5. I think that this tournament is going to be very tightly contested, and we're going to see fewer points for first place. And we're going to take a quick break, but we'll be back for game 2 of the 2020 U.S. Junior Championship.
This has been a tough time with COVID and the way 2020 has gone. What have you been doing personally to relax?
I'm really enjoying just going outside and shooting some hoops. And I also just a big sports fan in general, so there are a lot of sports going on. I'm following everything. Baseball playoffs are also coming, so definitely excited for sports.
Besides chess, my other main passion is music, and I guess playing guitar is kind of therapeutic, especially during these times when there's not a whole lot to do.
Yeah, in one way it's good because now I have a lot more time to focus on chess, just relax with school, and yeah, it's a good break for my brain.
I like to fence. That's definitely the sport I play. I enjoy doing that. I enjoy playing music. especially piano. And I enjoy just sort of helping out in the community as well.
I think, I think most chess players we're just like ordinary people. I'll, watch a football game with my friends, or I'll just, play some music.
Other than chess, I'm also, I'm going to be majoring in economics and computer science. So the juniors is kind of like a way to distract myself from college life.
I play a lot of sports, basketball, tennis, soccer, and I started playing piano this year and I really enjoy it.
Biking and reading plenty of books, different kinds of books.
There's a lot of fantastic players and tough opposition in this tournament. What do you hope to accomplish in this event?
For this tournament, I'm not seeded particularly highly, so my expectations shouldn't be, too high, but I do hope to just play decent chess and have some fun.
Play well, do well. I don't have a particular score or something in mind.
I'm looking to score a few points. That's really it.
Well, I hope to win, right? That should be my main goal. And of course, if I don't win, that would not be ideal. But regardless of the result, I'm just going to try to play my best and hopefully do decently.
This is really going to be the biggest event this year for me. And I'm hoping to just play good chess. I'm probably like too big of an underdog to win. But if I play well, I can finish in a top position.
I want to play well in the U.S. Junior to be confident in the U.S. Championship, time control-wise.
It's a great experience playing against other top players in the country. I'm a grandmaster and I barely qualified, so it's of course an extremely strong tournament, and I'm hoping for the best. Of course, I would like to win, but if not, it's still an amazing experience, and I'm glad I got to participate in this.
I'm coming in as the number one seed, so there's always a little bit of added pressure. I'm assuming that usually players will be more cautious against me, so hopefully I'm able to use that to my advantage.
To win it would be nice.
The St. Louis Chess Club is pleased to announce the expansion of our world-class chess facility. The 20,000 square foot expansion and upgraded facility will feature new ground-level classrooms supporting players of all ages, as well as expanded tournament and community gathering spaces with state-of-the-art technology. Accessibility upgrades, including a new 3-story elevator, will provide access for all participants and allow even greater community engagement in the great game of chess. As a proud resident of the Central West End neighborhood for over a decade, our hope is to build upon our investment into the community and solidify St. Louis as America's chess capital and preeminent global destination for lovers of the sport. We look forward to seeing you in our new space in 2021.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the 2020 U.S. Junior Close. As we have 3 players who won their first game, all with the black pieces: Jeffrey Zhang, Pravin Balakrishnan, and also Joshua Cheng. Can anyone get to 2-0, make a real big statement on day one? Well, we should take a look at the pairings as well to see the likelihood that that might happen, because as we know, all of the winners from last round will now be playing with white. Jeffrey plays against Christopher Shen, who's coming off a loss, so that could be tricky for the young Shen, who actually got into this tournament by winning the U.S. Junior Open. Joshua Cheng is playing against John Burke, and Pravin is playing against Nikola Cheka, who had a pretty solid draw last round. So for Burke and Shen, they're up against it. They're playing against winners after just having lost their game moments ago. Tough position to be in.
Yeah,
Yes.
never tough. Never easy, I should say, to deal with a loss in rapid chess.
Yeah, from the first round for me, the impressive was Praveen. He won a really smooth game. We didn't get a chance to look at it as much as we were looking at Jeffrey and Sam's game, but that was very impressive. And I liked your interview with him, Maurice. He was saying, well, the junior championship's a distraction from college. We should all have such distractions, huh?
Get a chance to win a little bit of money as well.
National championship. Yeah, you bet.
So many of them are excellent students. He's also playing against another strong student, Nicholas Cheka. You've got the Jacobson, who's going to Columbia at 14 years old. So some really extraordinary students who combine both chess and academics.
Geniuses,
absolutely.
Young geniuses, absolutely amazing.
But we should be getting moves any minute, guys, and I'm really excited about this round. We got moves in one game. Josh Chang and John Burke have already started, and they've got an English on tap.
Yeah, it seems like Jeffrey Zhang, for some strange reason, his game is always the last to start, and we tend to focus on him because he's the #1 seed. So we have an English for knights with E3. Oh, I love this variation as white. I won a lot of very nice games. A3 castles, that is a little bit off the beaten path. Virtually all my opponents have played either A5 to try to stop my B4 or D5, but castles allowing B4, well, okay, thank you for that. And white has the 2 bishops and just a very nice reverse Sicilian type of position. I really like this pressure on the diagonal. And you might say,
how do you feel about bishop at F3? Is that a move that worries you or delights you?
More closer to the delight in this particular case, because my king's not on G1. If my king was on G1, I'm going to go play king H1 so that I can use the G file. The double pawns, I'm not sensitive to the double pawns as so much as I think the dynamic of having a half open G file is good. And don't forget, that's another bishop that you just gifted me, so to speak. Now, having said that, if you're not playing bishop F3, why did you play bishop G4? Just to develop a piece and get it out. I think that whether he likes to or not, Black needs to play the move D65. And after all, what we got instead after D3 was A5, Jen. A5, I would not have played the move B5 myself. Whenever I'm playing against a knight, I've got the bishop, my opponent's got the knight. I'm loath to give my opponent's knight a square. When I play the move B5, I fear that I've given up control over the C5 square. So I would have just played bishop E2 and said to my opponent, if you want to trade on B4 and trade rooks, that's fine. But B5 was played, knight went back to B8 rather quickly as Black is looking to redirect his knight. H2, H3. Now, there you go, Jen. There's an answer to your question. How do I feel about bishop F3? White said, I want to provoke bishop F3. Black said, no, I'm going to keep my bishop. And we're up to date with the players.
Indeed, indeed. And you love these positions for white, even though the move B5 you weren't crazy about. Do you still, you still like white?
I do, because I do like the bishop. And I do like the fact that I have the move D3, D4 in reserve to deny the square C5. Now, having said that, if I'm going to play D4, I'm going to want to recapture with the pawn. Therefore, a move like bishop E2, so that I can prepare to play D4 and recapture with a pawn, is probably going to get us a position like this. And I don't think that this is a terrible position for Black. I think that this is quite playable, I would say.
G4 on the board, bishop G6 played in response, of course.
Okay.
And now
G4,
what? Can we get away
bishop
with
G6?
We can't get away with playing H4 because you can just play knight takes G4, I think.
Right. Yeah.
So that's not good. So what do you think the idea is here for white after tripling his? king size pawn structure.
Yeah, I'm sure the intention from White's point of view was he was looking to hunt down this bishop and put his bishop on g2. Now, whether that was a good plan, jury's out on that one, but I'm quite sure that was his idea when he played h3. It was like, take my knight, and when he played g4, it's like, no, I'm going to take your bishop since you're not interested in taking my knight. And that's what, and he's done it. He's played knight h4.
Now, we have an unusual opening, by the way, in the game between Jeffrey Zhang and Christopher Shen. If you want to go to that one,
Sure.
As our top seeds game is underway.
Kind of a London of sorts with a very early knight c3, knight b5.
Like a Verisov, I think that might be called, with this knight
okay.
c3 move. But the thing is, you end up having to move your knight back very quickly. So what's the idea? Yes, I always thought that when we played this, we were trying to play knight b5 in such a way that we could get c4 in, which is funny because we could have just played c4 earlier. But I mean, why play your knight to c3 then move it back to c3? When you're playing d4 openings, you're usually trying to get c4, c3 in. So what's Jeffrey's strategy here?
Well, if we go sorry, let me just clear the board for just a second. Okay, I wanted to somehow, let me see if I can do this. Wanted somehow, like when we play d4, d5 games, like we're just going to have a discussion, you and I, about d4, d5. When we play d4, d5 type of middle games, the fight is usually about the control over e5, e4. Now, as we know, the theory has advanced so deeply so far, it's kind of hard to create play and get our opponents out of their comfort zone. So we have d4, d5, and now we're going to play for control over the e5 square. Well, in this weird knight b1 to c3 to b5 back to c3 maneuvering, one of the things I've managed to do is convince your knight not to play to d7 and challenge the fight for the e5 square. Somehow I got you to play knight a6, knight c7, knight e8, knight d6. And so White, through trickery, has managed to win control over the e5 square. That's not the end of the story, because as I started by explaining d4, d5, Black in turn is trying to win control over the e4 square. So I'm seeing it, Jen, as a really rich strategic battle. And from Jeffrey's point of view, I think he wants to avoid really, really long theoretical fights, because then he's afraid his natural talent isn't going to be as good when he's playing unusual middle games.
That makes sense. And he is playing against Christopher Shen, who's one of the lower rated players in the event. By the way, Christopher got into this event by winning the U.S. Junior Open last year. And, I played one U.S. Junior close, and that's how I got in as well.
Really?
And yeah. I mean, the U.S. Junior Open is an important tournament to win because it's hard to qualify for this U.S. Junior closed, right?
Right.
So this is a nice ticket. That's the way to get into it. That and the Denker now as well. So Bryce got in via the Denker, and Christopher got in via the U.S. Junior Open.
Got it. And we do.
So speaking of an unusual opening sequence, and we all are of the character that when our opponent plays something that we think is a little ridiculous, you probably need to refute it. Like, right out the opening, I need to put a position on the board that you're going to feel regret for having broken tried and true principles.
Right.
But take a look at this game right now going on between Sam Sevian and Brandon Jacobson. And I got to tell you, I've been just watching it as it unfolded, and I want to see how an elite player like Sam handled this opening. The game started off with knight f3, d5, g3, and then the move knight to d7, which looks like, okay, maybe he has some plan to play an potentially early e5 move. If we could just bring that up on the screen. There we go. So e5 looks like maybe he might want to do that. He put his knight on d7, blocking his bishop. Intriguing. So let's not give him e5. And then he played the move knight to b6. Now, it's not every day you see this maneuver in the first three moves. The knight goes to d7, and then to b6. It does stop an automatic c4, but the knight on b6 is often a funny piece. So you say, well, where are you going from there? Like, what's your future aspirations? Is it only to control me? Because the squares you have don't look like you'll ever get there properly. So Sam just played some regular developing moves to start. Bishop f5, continuing this kind of queen side development first instead of king side development. And after knight f6, the move b3 to say, okay, now I have established you're not putting your knight anywhere. Why is your knight on that square? Well, he didn't even care. He said, I'll play c6 since you can't play c4 just yet. Bishop b2, I'll play h6. I'll keep temporizing. I'm not going to give you my bishop. Knight bd2, potentially playing for a c4 eventually. And e6, c4 played, a5. And now the knight on b6 suddenly looks more useful than it should. Like, why? You know, if I play c5, you can just drop back and it seems like none the worse for wear. But Sam said, I'm going to go a different route. I'm going to play for f3 and e4. And this is this position we have on the board. Has this line refuted this rambunctious knight d7, knight b6 idea?
You know, it's funny. You're right. Everybody sings from the same hymn book, you know, control the center, develop one piece at a time, don't move the same piece twice. We have all of these guiding lines and then guiding principles. And then somebody comes up with a bad move, knight d7, knight b6. And we think, right, let me get out the hammer, time to punish my opponent. And then the strangest thing is, like, I don't understand, you know, like, it's not refutable. It's a little bit off-putting, but just because you wasted a move or even two, the position is still closed. No pawns have been traded. So sometimes you can get away with a lot. And it feels like to me, though, I do prefer white. It's not like I have some, you know, massive overkill. When Sam went, you know, like c4, e4, d4, you know, he's probably thinking, gotcha. But at the moment, it's okay. I don't think
Not
it's
so
terrible.
Not so easy.
No.
And the bishop on b2, it is blocked for the moment.
Right.
And you wonder, what is the follow-up? He's just played king h1. Say, what is the follow-up exactly for white? What if black did nothing?
Right.
What would white do? Because the knight on d2 is guarding the e4 pawn. And one of the dangers of having space is you've got to guard all that space. And right now, it's a big responsibility. And right now, the bishop on b4 says, all right, I'm playing this almost like in the spirit of the Alekhine. You get your pawns rolling, and as soon as you do it, bam, bishop b4, I'm hitting your knight. Now your e pawn is under attack 3 times.
Right.
And what are you going to do about it? You're going to make a rookie 1 move? You don't want to do that. You can't move your queen. You can't move your knight. He committed with the move c5, which will allow this knight to drop back to d7. Still, the issue is going to be that pawn on e4. It will be under pressure.
No question about it. And I like this move, bishop b4. I had a style I'll describe as provocative. I really liked to test my opponent and force my opponent to maybe making some uncomfortable decisions. Some opponents really don't like attacking. I know that sounds strange, but some players really like to play it safe, right? We kind of saw Christopher Yu in game 1, where he really didn't go completely crazy after Sam, right? He just wanted to make sure he was playing good chess. And sometimes you've got a provocative player, a Bent Larson type of player that forces you to sometimes attack. Now, in this particular case, this particular moment, white, as you've just said, Sam, you know, he's just gained a lot of space, but he's going to take a lot of responsibility to guard all of the pieces and squares that he's weakened by pushing his pawns forward so fast. Now, after the move c5, Brandon has actually stopped, and I don't know why. Like, isn't like knight d7 obvious and good?
I see a trick though. I see
What's
one
the
trick, and that is knight d7, take on d7.
Okay.
And after you play the natural, well, it doesn't matter what you play actually in the next move.
Yeah, queen takes, I was thinking, yeah.
There's the move knight b1.
Ah,
the
so
sneaky knight b1
trying
with
to
the
trap.
threat of a3 trying to trap the bishop.
Right.
You could take on e4 and argue, I'm going to get, what is it, 2 pawns? No, it's only 2 after the move a3 because you get on f3, but then I take, and then
yeah,
the bishop
two
is going to be
pawns,
trapped. I'm not sure queen
not
takes
enough.
was the right way because you do have bishop e4 and create some whatever. But at any rate, this
Right.
one looks like you're going to be a piece for 2 pawns. So that might force the move after knight takes, queen takes, might force the move a4, maybe the only move. In which case, now he can play a3, he can play b4, and now he can stop and think, do I just dominate space with e5? Or do I play knight c3 instead? Your a pawn is hanging. This knight b1 is thorny. It might force you right now to play bishop takes d2 after c5. You might have to play it. And
Maurice,
okay, after much discussion, he's done it.
And it's actually funny Ivar mentioned playing a4 immediately. That's a sweet idea.
What? After c5?
Yeah, I guess because I mean you're playing a3 and then bishop c3. I take it. Looks
And
really
after
weird.
b1. This is.
I mean, Ivar is accessing the computer. Yeah, but yeah, bishop c3, rook b1. And then
that would have got your attention like snap.
That wakes you up. Wow, what an idea. I'm loving it.
How many pawns do we have at the end of it? When you play rook b1 and we play bishop d4, though, we're only going to get 2 pawns, right? We're getting the pawn on b4 and then the pawn on b6.
We're
But where's your knight go?
Also disturbing this fellow, right?
That is unbelievable as a line.
That is a crazy line. Yeah, I don't.
That's fun. That's fun.
It's hard to see stuff like that when you're not forced to see it, right? When it's just like another variation that might be good or confusing. Like if Brandon was forced to see that, otherwise he was going to lose a piece, he would have seen it, right?
Right.
By the way, Var also alerted me, being that Varoujan is a great player of the French, great practitioner of it. He spotted a game where the French was not looking in the greatest shape. And that's the game between one of our co-leaders, Praveen, and Nicholas, or Nico, as he usually goes by.
Okay, let's take a look.
It looks like that bishop has really planted itself.
That's an enormous looking bishop. I'm not
in castle.
Are you sure you said planted strongly enough?
Yeah, I was like, rooted is what I was going to say.
Yeah, you weren't here yesterday, but like, Maurice, there was some beautiful analogies that Yasser was making about how the positions were flowering, and I was just thinking about you and the types of analogies that you usually make, Maurice. There's a lot of blood here.
Yeah, flowering would not make my list of descriptions when we're trying
some tulips
to kill the guy.
Stomping,
yeah, definitely. More belligerence, please. More war. The more the merrier. But man, that bishop on f6.
It's a monster bishop. Here's the thing I don't like about the move castling, though. Okay, you look at this position, and as you know, stars are dancing in your eyes and so on. You say, well, where am I going to win the game? Am I going to win well, the center is blocked, and I'm not winning the game in the center. The queen side, no, I don't see why I would win the game on the queen side. Rook b1, no. Oh, I know, I'm going to win the game on the king side. Yeah. So now the idea of f3, g4, trying to provoke hg, fg, so that you could utilize this bishop to coordinate your h-pawn. So I'm not a big fan of the move castles because it means my winning plan of f3, g4 is going to be put on hold for a long time. And if I don't get a chance to play f3, g4, well, eventually, slowly, it may take him quite some number of turns. but black will bring a knight to c6, he'll castle, and somehow one day this knight will end up on f5. So I think f3 and g4 were needed and castles not needed.
Good point. And I have to say, as someone who hates playing against this setup in the French, I'm surprised that VAR is that sour on this position.
Yeah.
I'd have to hear his opinion and his nuances, because usually French players are like, whatever, I know you've got a great square. I know my bishop sucks.
Right.
But wait a minute, I don't even have this bad bishop anymore. I'm going to plant a knight on c4 one day, and you're going to regret the day your bishop has no chances whatsoever on this f6 square. Yeah, it's doing whatever, but you're not going to get anything. Just optically, you're looking like you're in a great square with nowhere to go. So that position, I'm not a big fan of that being that closed. I'm sure VAR can say the nuance is much better than I can in that position, as that bishop does look like a monster. I agree. The bishop does. It's just not going anywhere.
Well,
but I feel like that bishop
at the right moment, it could take on e7 at the right moment.
That's what I was going to say. The right moment. That's exactly what I was going to say, Jen. You channel my thoughts. Exactly.
Because you often talk about that, about how bishop takes knight is the most important move in chess, which is kind of funny because there's one of the chess bras is knight takes bishop. So I always think of you because I'm like, wait, it's the opposite of what Maurice says. That's Ahmad. He's a KNVB, right? Yeah,
right.
Yes, you sometimes do shows with them, so you know that.
Right. Yes.
But in any case, VAR is in the middle of typing to me in Skype, so we're going to get his opinion. And he says that the knight on a6 is misplaced, and that's another thing he doesn't like. And he also, I think, agrees with us that this idea of bishop f6 is always hanging on you, right?
Right.
Bishop takes on
we
e7.
E7.
We have seen the plain old ornery counterattacking move c7 c5 by Nico, as he's looking to put pressure on the d4 pawn. If he could, he would really, really like white to capture, as VAR was about to say, the knight on a6 misplaced. Put the knight on c5, and VAR is going to be smiling as black is looking to play knight e4, maybe eliminate this bishop. So after the move c5, I suspect we'll see something like rook to d1 and rook to c8 by black. Black will end up keeping his king on in the center. I would not have played c5 myself. I would have immediately brought my knight back into the fight with knight b8 to c6, defending the knight, preparing to castle long. I like my king safely tucked behind my queenside pawn shield, but c5 rook d1 on the board.
Yes, I like your move. Sure. I have to say I like your move. I also have to say that I don't think black would even need to castle, given that point, that you could play knight a6, knight a5, knight to c4 is back in the position as well. Exactly. So until white shows that he's doing something,
right,
we're just going to smile and say, what are you doing? I can actually bring these pieces to this square. That's why maybe I'll be afraid of your idea, f3, g4. I thought that was a really good point, because it's so quick. It's to the point. It's challenging the position immediately. Whether or not there's some trickiness with knight f5 or something, I don't know. But that really is such a pointed move, saying I'm coming to create weaknesses now and attack right now on your position. By the way,
it was the direct approach, no question about it.
Very direct. We switch over to what is a very curious game. And just as I said it, the game between Josh and John, and John, Schengenberg, and look at the knight on g3. Look at that move. And if you go just a couple of moves back after the move g5 had been played. So here we see takes on g6, and he took with the f pawn. Get that open file, played knight moves, hitting the pawn. So g5 was played, chasing the knight, then h4, defending the pawn, and then a very concrete knight c5, potentially looking for knight a4. He said, I'm not going to give you that. Queen back. And now queen to f7. Maybe there might be something on the f2 square. This prompted him to play the move rook to h2, which he might now be regretting because the knight just said, hello, I'm coming in. Knight g3. You thought I was going to be locked out of the game, but guess who's headed to the f5 square when you move your bishop, or if you move your bishop?
I would love to move my bishop, Maurice, because I'm thinking bishop g2 wins the game as soon as I get to play bishop d5. It's your turn. It's like, let me play queen takes f2 and or knight takes d3, by the way.
First,
either one
might be stronger.
In either case, you're doing great here as black. So
That was saucy.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, well, gosh darn it, I really wanted to get my bishop out of play, but I have to keep the f2 pawn protected. How about bishop h3? I don't like allowing knight takes f1.
Right. So bishop h3 looks wise. Knight f2, knight d3. Thinking about the f2 square is no longer on tap because, of course, the rook is guarding the f2 square properly. So nothing there. And you are threatening now to take that knight on g3. That is a clear and present danger in the position. So knight back to f5 is possible.
I was thinking that you might kind of try to post up with a move like queen f3, just so that taking the knight could run into all kinds of
shots. That's a nice idea. What's happening here? Nice move, yes. Queen f3.
Yeah,
and bishop h3 on the board, so we might get the opportunity to see this move. Will John play this move?
Now that was what I was trying to say, maybe in not the very best way. You know, some people just are really, really gifted attackers. I mean, they may not have high ratings. They may only be 16, 1800 class players, but they can play like masters when you give them their kind of positions. Conversely, other players like the Ulf Andersons of the world, they're playing defensive combinations before you even realize you had an attack. They love the defense. Move like queen f3, pardon me, is like the attacker's kind of move, right? You just love posting up your queen deep in the opponent's territory. And this move kind of preps e4. It makes White's life very difficult, I want to say.
Well, actually, the challenge is what is
castles.
White's next move?
White wanted a castle and bring his rook into play and his king out of any danger. But so queen f3 really crosses that plan, that option.
So is queen d1 the only move here?
Yeah, that looks like a weird one, but maybe necessary.
I mean, if I can trade queens and keep the two bishops and then start pushing your knights back, then I'm going to be happy. So queen d1, what do you do? It feels like this is where the wild.
I have to play e4, right? Everything else, my play isn't justified if I don't follow it up with e4.
Right.
Are you sure though? Because pieces are starting to get funny. Queen takes. What if queen takes on f3 here?
Well, you have that in between move now. Knight takes d3 because it's supported by the pawn, right?
Right. Exactly. Now my knight is hanging, but so is the bishop on b2.
It is.
So
the only square was d2, huh? There was nothing else to do. Queen of3 is on the board. Queen of3 is on the board. And so e4 takes check. King d1 is not playable. If king d1 is not playable because of knight b2 check.
King David 1. Yeah, that's a check.
Yeah, because of knight b2 check, then it is
intermezzo. Yeah.
Right. And then take, and whatever happens next is fine. So then the only move becomes takes on, king d2, and then rook takes, and the piece is hanging, and the knight is going to escape.
on F5.
easily escape. By the way, your F2 pawn is actually hanging straight because your bishop is hanging as well. So that knight might not even have to escape when you save your bishop.
Right.
Wow. So queen d1, e4 means you cannot. Okay, but you're still going all in with this move e4. So e4.
No question. No question.
E4. Let's look at this. Queen d1, e4. Take this guy.
Take on e4 now. Okay. Now, well, the one good thing is now my knight on c5 is absolutely secure. Remember, I was trying to be able to play d3, d4. When I see that knight absolutely fine, I think that black should be, rock solid. So even if I were to trade queens and take this pawn, I think that black's okay. But I'd still be maybe a
curious
little bit
about
worried.
keeping the attack going. Absolutely.
Yeah, about keeping the attack. Yeah, because again, I'm just a presumption is that you're not going to take the knight. Queen takes is supposedly too strong for me, too strong for black. Sorry. So if my knight's not hanging, then black is doing great, doing fine.
I can't take the knight. I mean, queen e3 and queen g1 looks too strong.
Exactly.
Against
don't deal with that. Don't go
this
there.
play just looks way too aggressive.
Right.
What do you do? Okay, so that means white has to be concerned, dramatically so, about even e4 as the next move.
Precisely. Yeah, I think e5, e4 is definitely on black's agenda, John, looking to keep the king in the center, bring the rook into the attack, and pound away on the d3.
And this is
square.
special. This is a
Nice,
special line. He took with the f pawn to get the f file. He put his knight on the side. He then activated both pieces. But it turns out that this idea of putting the rook on h2 was just wrong.
Well, at the time, it looked great. I mean, until the knight landed on the g3 square, white's strategy had been to try to keep this knight essentially offside, right? Like if that knight doesn't move and white gets to play castles, the g3 and f4 protection of those two squares means that knight on h5, you're playing a piece down. This knight g3 is super disruptive. And after bishop h3, queen f3 is, how should we say it? That wasn't on the blueprint. I mean,
but let's be clear about this. The problem for white is that white went all in this variation by taking on g3, and then this position happened. But if you look at it, the reality is if you go back just a couple of moves, and this is such an instructive game from a very deep point, right here when the queen landed on f7. Right, so white thinks he's doing something. And by opening the F file, and his queen comes back, and it has to guard the A4 square and the F2 point. Now suddenly F2 is under attack. You just can't castle. You can't castle. You can't play E4 to open up the game. So what do? You think you're playing Rook H2. Rook H2 is actually a little bit of desperation. You have to play something. You can't play Bishop E2 because your pawn on F2 is hanging, and you also cannot play bishop to G2. Because bishop G2, if you play bishop G2 in this position, you hang queen takes on F2 with check, followed by knight takes on D3 with check, or the reverse. So
all the reversed, yeah.
So all this is bad. In fact, Rook H2 it wasn't even when I first saw the knight on H5 and the rook at H2, what I thought was, okay, the rook is dominating the knight. So for the moment, do we really care that these two pieces look silly, right? The rook at H2 looks silly. The knight on H5 looks silly. Turns out it's not dominating anything. Knight G3, queen F3, hello, I'm in the party. And it just completely changed the game. And the threat of queen F3 was also on tap as well when the knight was there. So now we've got this position where white is getting tied up in knots. He's played rook to D1, and the move E4 looks just as powerful as ever.
Right. Yeah, this looks like a very nice attacking moment for John Burke here. The one good thing I will say in defense of the move rook d1 is it does prepare the move bishop g2. A moment ago, you were pointing out that these tactics Maurice, with queen takes f2 check and knight takes d3 were possible when the bishop lands on g2. With the move rook d1, white is prepping the move bishop g2. He really wants to kick that queen out. Now, having said all of that, isn't this move e5, e4 the critical move?
Yeah, I mean, it's a minimum in the position. It's just just the minimum. Although,
by the way,
yes,
and this game's very fascinating, but
please.
One of our leaders could be in deep trouble, guys, as not one of our leaders, one of our top rated players, Grandmaster Sam Sevian, has seemed to be in huge trouble all of a sudden after rook takes b4. Faroushan tipped me off about this actually, and he said actually at the moment, if you back up a couple of moves, after queen d2, queen g5 was an excellent move, and he said that already black is much better because you can't hold on to all of the pawns in this situation.
Well, we were talking about the advanced pawns as, you know, you have this responsibility to defend all the squares, all the pawns, and we're seeing that come to fruition after this move rook b4. It looks to my eyes like black has simply crashed through. And you're right, Sam is in desperate straits here as a d4 is hanging, the rook, and even you don't see that often in just a plain old middle game where the rook posts up so powerfully on the b2 square. This looks terrible. I just don't believe that f5 and f6 with this bishop sitting over here on h7 is ever going to secure white any kind of attack. I think that f5 rook takes d4. Black is the one, you know, having all the fun. Having said that, what else can I recommend for Sam? He's burned his bridges. He's gambling big time that his opponent will panic under the threat of a pawn attack. But there's no panic here for black. I think, you know, black can just take on d4, take on f5, and play queen to g5 and take over the game.
By the way, even in this position, after taking on d4, which just looks correct, I'm asking the question, what exactly is, and he's done it, what is the plan for white? So queen f3, it looks like f6 taking on g7 at a moment when I can't even move my rook off of that square. But if you play f6 yourself, I will be able to play the move bishop g6. Right. And then what several moves do you concoct to create your mating idea? I guess you could play for bishop h4, take on g7, put a bishop on g7, and then hope you can crash through on h6 before I ever get anything going myself, because I'm going to be watching you all this time, just because, you know, I like
here's
you.
Here's the problem.
Gonna happen.
Here's the problem I see it from Sam's point of view. Black is going to capture on f5, and he's going to put his queen right directly, you know, to break up the party and to stop you from, you know, ever dreaming that you would play f6. Bishop is going to come to e4. The queen can land on g4. Any queen trades means goodbye to any attack that you might have even been thinking about. In the meanwhile, the queen side is just gorgeously dominated. This knight is like beautiful on b5. It defends a3. It menaces knight c3 for any future endgame that might be down the line. So this just looks awful. Just plain awful.
And
now,
by the way, we just got a word from Kostya Kavutsky, who's once again doing social media and reporting for this event. He tweeted out asking if anyone could figure out who was behind Grandmaster Sam Sevian. And I'm telling you, it's someone who's not looking too approvingly at his position right now.
I thought that bottom of that face looked like Capablanca was going to be.
That's bingo. Bingo.
No.
That is.
Well. Hello. All I needed was that slight smile, just a little. Look at at that.
Look
I
at
saw
that.
That's who I thought it was when I looked.
Capablanca.
We'll have to
Nice.
confirm that indeed later. But you know, the thing about that Capablanca is that it's kind of a funny game. Like, let me just give you half the face of somebody and you have to guess who it is.
Right.
Bruce won.
I can name that tune in 2 notes. Yeah, give me a quarter of a picture. By the way, another thing that French defense players like Varouchian, like myself, are very aware of, when our opponents do make this F5 break, sometimes we have this nice H6, H5 type of counter attacking move that can really stop an attack at once. And guess what? That was Brandon's decision. He played H5. And again, I mean, poor Sam, he's actually pot committed. He's just going all out with the move F6. Now the move rook takes G4. Thank you to this pawn on H5, followed by bishop E4. Looks
How
like
is that not brilliant?
Yes.
Well, really a tough start for Sam, guys. I mean, he could have lost his last game. It doesn't seem
Easily.
like his form is right. But, you know, the good news for Sam is that he is playing in the U.S. Championship as well. So, you know, hopefully he can get his kinks out now, as they will be using the exact same format as they use here, as bishop E4 was just played. And,
E4,
you know, if I could have a couple moves and put my queen on G5, if only my queen could move like a knight right now. What's that called again? The super queen?
Zip. Yeah, an elephant.
An elephant.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
but the problem is, you know, you get to take on G2 with check and then play rook G4, and suddenly there's no access to that G5 square.
Absolutely not. I mean, if you were dreaming about Queen E3 and like like Maurice was saying too, somehow you would sneak in F takes G7 and maybe bishop H4, you get some nice dark square compelling attack. Let me shut that down right away with rook takes G4, because now the rook will find a great defensive post on the G6 square. And Queen F2, not Queen E3, was Sam's decision. But I got to tell you, it's one-way traffic now. And
Black has every single pawn still on the board.
Wow.
Black has all 8 pawns, as white pawns are dropping like flies. Rook takes G4 would just munch another pawn, as bishop G2 check is on the board. This is almost resigns. If he takes and plays rook takes on G4, he has 8 pawns and 0 attacking chances. And by the way, that C5 pawn doesn't look that attractive either. Then the guy has a connected pass pawn. The rook will park itself on the G6 square, and you'll never chase it off that square in the history of time. I mean, it's just never going to leave. And then it's going to be all about Black's play. This is comfortably resigns. Unfortunately for Sam, he won't. He'll keep looking for tricks, but really not a great position. Let's get back to that wonderful position that we saw John Burke putting a masterpiece together. He did win an exchange finally with E4, D4, and knight D3 check played, and had to sacrifice an exchange in that game. And now Black still this night sitting on G3. I mean, I'm not leaving. I'm in the party, but at the moment, at least it looks like you still can't take it. The problem is, what does Black do to break through?
Right.
White is looking for a chance to get some pieces on some squares. Where's the breakthrough? Is it even necessary? He still has himself all 8 pawns. He has an exchange. He's an exchange down. But if he could maybe sneak in a move like D5 and bishop E6, play for H5 as well. If you're not in the right space, that knight on F5 is going to be a big impediment to that. But you know, you've got to find the moves. You still have to find the right way to break the position down. Where is it? And he's played rook E4.
He did play the move rook E4. I was expecting knight to drop back to F5. Not that I was worried about taking losing the knight. It was just actually what I wanted to do was, well, frankly, win a pawn. But rook to E4 rook h4 is actually some kind of a threat. Excuse me.
Some kind of a threat.
Because bishop e6 check followed by rook takes h4 is going to hang the pawn on f2. So rook takes h4 might be, a very real threat that you simply can't ignore. Of course, you cannot play bishop g2, a move that you would love to play, simply queen f2, and you can resign the game on the spot. So no bishop g2, queen c2, however, does defend f2 and makes bishop g2 possible yet again.
Oh, what a funny move. I was just looking. I don't think it's a good move, but it's just funny that knight h1 is a thing here.
Knight h1?
I'm just saying I can pile up on f2.
Wild idea. Knight h1 might run into bishop g2 though.
I know, but I had to show it.
It is a very nice, a very nice demonstration.
I think you
here. If I could, yeah. There's too many things hanging.
I think you've been poisoned by Nimzovich. That's all I can say.
But wait a minute. What happens though? Knight h1, bishop g2.
Now we're all going to be poisoned.
Let's be poisoned. Bishop g2 looks like it should refute, but then queen f2 check takes, and rook takes on f2. Sorry.
Rook takes on f2.
Takes on f2.
Well, what is the knight doing down here?
I know. I'm just trying to justify it. I'm just trying
h1. Bishop h1.
Oh, bishop h1.
Bishop h1 instead of bishop e4.
Yes, bishop h1. That would refute. That's right, because rook takes, and then I don't get my check to skewer you. All right, that cleaned that up.
Bishops are way more powerful.
Jen, you just refuted your own idea. I'm trying to justify your idea, and you refuted it yourself.
I know. I mean,
why am I following behind you to try to help you, and you're just going to refute the thing?
It's like,
what's up with that?
Stand-up comedy, you try to help the person.
Help her, and she goes, "No, that's dumb." What?
That's dumb.
Trying to help you.
It's truth that we're after. It's truth.
Okay. So knight h1 didn't survive.
That didn't survive. No.
The test.
So then back to what's the move?
Yeah, what does black want now?
What does black want? Black has all these pieces purely dressed up, beautifully aggressive.
Well, there was a wonderful player,
and he just backed up.
Was Rashid Nejmedinov, and Rashid never retreated, never. Rashid would have continued the attack, of course, with a queen sacrifice, and he would have said, "Look, I'm threatening check, and I'm going to take the pawn on f2 next. Your bishop is bad, my knight is good. What are you going to do?" And I think Rashid would have approved rook takes h4. It would have gotten.
That's a very nice idea. I love it. Let's see it.
Approval. Would it have worked though? Because there is a check, and I think Rashid would maybe not have approved.
It's complicated, yes, but look at the simple move that John played. He just played the move knight to f5 with the idea of bishop f5, queen f5, and suddenly we're threatening rook takes e3 check, winning your queen on c2.
That's a nasty discovered check, no question about it, Jen.
No, but more importantly, the move bishop e2, the move bishop g2, excuse me, bishop g2.
I think
and it
runs into this one.
You need to have a blow there, and that does look nasty.
I think that's the blow. What a move. Knight takes d4. The idea, of course, is if you take my rook, thinking, aha, I want a queen, I want a rook. Oops, sorry about that. Just had to put it on as a visual. And if you take the queen with the idea that, okay, I'll defend the bishop, guess what? The knight comes right back, and if you think, now at least I've got your rook.
Genius.
Genius. So
great move. Knight f5, brilliant. As Joshua Chang now in the tank. He's waited for a game.
Jeez.
But it looks like these two are going to trade wins with other people, because if Burke does win this game, they'll both be on 1 point. but of course, Burke on the upswing, so be feeling good going into round 3.
And a game like this, I mean,
That's nice.
This is the kind of game you want to win. You want to win the tournament for sure, but you always like to have a game in your pocket where you say, "That was nice." I'll keep that in my I keep that in my best game collection for the future. That was sweet. And I mean, just amazing, absolutely amazing.
We have Queen
dance
D1,
of pieces.
Queen D1 on the board, and that does, of course, invite both knight takes H4. I think there's reasons for knight takes H4, but I love capturing central pawns. I much prefer
you and everybody else, including Nimzovich, by the way. Yes. Knight takes D4.
He had his moments. He had his moments too. Knight takes D4. Thanks for the pawn. And by the way, that's a huge pawn. It's not just a pawn, but that just opens up the position along the 4th rank for the rook, as well as eyeballing this.
Just domination. Just absolute and beautiful.
How was
play.
Jeffrey doing?
Jeffrey drew. Oh, he drew a bit while back. We didn't really have to pay too much attention to that one. But
Sam is looking like he's going down big time as we checked it out last time.
Yes.
And so we had a couple more moves. Burke just played rook takes H4.
Okay.
Oh gosh, the domino
takes H4.
Falling.
Yeah.
Every move a hammer. Every move a hammer.
Dominoes.
In that one. Jeez, what a great game. This one could catapult him forward. In the meantime, Sam's position. So we see two positions right now as we look at both sides of the screen. We see white. Wait a second.
White isn't winning any games.
Didn't we say that black won 3 games in the last round? And we're looking at 2 dominant black positions again.
Black could be 5-0, Maurice. I will say this though, Praveen is better. Praveen is better with white, so maybe he'll win that game. He'll show that have some value.
Well,
I mean, that's
thank
crazy.
goodness for that. I mean, by the way, the bishop on F6 does support still H5, but crazy. Okay, that was the Jeffrey game. Sorry, and I didn't see Christopher's game. Was that also drawn shortly?
We haven't looked at this one as much yet, but what do you think of it? I mean, last time I checked, I liked black. I'm not so sure anymore. The B3 was just.
It's a bit tepid. The game. Chris didn't play much.
Bryce, but there is a pawn hanging, right? I mean, Bryce could potentially play knight takes and win either the C3 pawn or the E4.
I see what you're saying. Yeah. So just
maybe. Okay, we'll keep that in mind. Sam looks like, well, he's struggling. He's doing his best to make it difficult for his opponent.
And John Burke just forced resignation, coming back from a loss to defeat Josh Tang, and now they both have 1 point.
How did that king
let's
get chased?
Let's see how it got chased.
Mm-hmm.
When we left it, we just saw the move rook H4, rook H3, queen takes. Okay, not going down without at least making one threat of a checkmate. And look at this, the king got chased, and it didn't last long at all. That was all she wrote. The rook was about to be introduced into the position, and Josh threw in the towel.
Precision and beauty. Come on, that was fantastic. Absolutely fantastic game. Game of the round. Game of the tournament so far, as far as I'm concerned. That was unusual chess, played like a star. Amazing game by John Burke.
And we're switching back to a pre-tournament favorite, Sam Sevian, up against it at the moment, down lots of pawns. He's gone all in on a kingside attack, and he's just played the visually attractive move, Queen H6. And that's about all I can say at the moment.
Oh no. But what if we play, I'm just trying to think. So Queen C2 check, King H1.
Queen C2 check, King H1. I was actually thinking about Knight G3, just to.
Yeah, because if you play Bishop G3, we have Rook H6, right?
Exactly, but then you do have a discover check, So knight g3 might not work. Look at this. How you like me now?
You won. Nice one.
No. For some reason, I thought you had already played the first move. You're playing knight g3 without a check.
Oh, yeah. We wanted
You should be playing queen c2 check first.
Queen c2 check first. Yeah, sorry.
And then knight g3. That's
Correct.
where it makes sense. Exactly. Because rook takes allows queen takes d1 with a check.
And you're not.
And if you play bishop takes, now
you can
because
take the queen.
yeah, because now the queen is not on the dark square with the discovery. Now there's no discovery that.
Yep, Sam looks like he's going down.
That's just a win. If he finds queen c2 and knight g3, he will have defeated also in style the number 2 player in this event. So he just needs to find this one sequence. Is there anything else he can do that he might be thinking about actually in this position instead of queen c2?
Well,
and we have big news on Nico. Apparently, Bar is telling me that Nico blundered a mate in 3. What happened? Rook to.
Oh no! He took the pawn on c3.
Oh, he got his hand caught in the cookie jar.
A checkmate with the king.
Well, you don't see a discovered check that leads to checkmate.
Oh my God!
With a king move.
Not very often, except when you decide to put your king in the other person's camp and then take a pawn when all his pieces are hanging out, especially his rooks. That was really must have been I want to say time pressure blunder, but 111 left. That was a big time mistake.
But this is a cool mate. I mean,
it is a cool mate.
Mistake. It's always cool to see a checkmate in the end game, right? That's just it's surprising, and that's why such a strong player misses it, because you think in the end game it's like great, you're getting your king into your opponent's territory, you're in to usher your pawn, and then it's like, wait a second, I can still mate with 2 rooks. And look at that, Praveen, 2 points, starting out with 2-0.
Nice.
And the first win for White, by the way.
Right. Finally, right? Like
White
a win.
Finally pulled off a victory.
It looks like
Brandon didn't find your queen c2 idea, Yaz, but hey, he's still up like 6 pawns.
He did, and he just took the rook.
Oh, wait, he did play queen c2?
He did play queen c2, and he just said,
yeah.
Let me just trade queens, and man after my own heart, he took another pawn to go with it.
But yes, he only has 7 pawns on the board. He doesn't have all 8 remaining.
It's not enough.
I mean,
my needs are
extra pawns. Knight d3 played, and there's another pawn that he gets to take. Although, okay, White got 1 also.
White could get 2 more and still be lost. I mean, this position is just miserable.
Knight f3 is coming a la tempo, because knight f3 will be threatening also rook g1 mate. So
that would work.
Actually, because he has bishop f2, why don't you just play knight c4 and just do one of your pushing baby dances?
Just get this guy.
What do you have if I cement this knight and then just move my king? And you don't have any moves. You actually have no moves. After knight c4,
the king is cut.
Your king is cut.
The bishop is useless.
And you can't attack anything.
You can't attack anything. No, knight c4, f5, and then just escort the pawns up the board.
And we do have one game still underway that is a result very much in doubt, and they're basically playing a bullet game. So let's move to that, as this one looks like it's in the bag for Brandon.
This is the Christopher
Rice is the only other remaining game, and it's quite rich.
Yes, indeed. He didn't take the c pawn; he got the e pawn instead. No, how did this happen? He took on e3. He traded on he just traded simply to get to this position, and now we have this one that is wild, because here he didn't get any material, and he's just gotten this position and c4, and wow, can the youngster, the 13-year-old, who happens to be higher rated than his opponent as well, by the way.
Yeah, Bryce got in by the Denker qualifier.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I don't think you would have quite made the rating cut. So rook to d4, knight c3 on the board. I don't know. That knight is finding its way back to like d5. I feel
civilization,
like White.
Exactly. No, in this battle between the bishop and the knight, in this position, because the knight has such a powerful secured square in the middle of the board, knight d5, I actually prefer the knight to the bishop.
And look at this. I was going to
exchange
suggest this. I was
sacrifice.
looking at this because of the a5 pawn, but more importantly, the f5 pawn. And this move is critical. Queen to d6. If you play queen takes f5, there's a rook f8, but does it do any damage to white's position, as white can put a knight on d5 and cut the back rank problem to shreds? Can he get away with queen f5? Rook f8, where does the queen go? Can I even be bold enough? No, would I take on a5? Instead, he's taking on a5 just completely. He said, I don't want you to have any counterplay. Put a knight on d5 and you won't have any tactics on the f file or the d line. And white, what an interesting sacrifice by the youngster.
I'm not sure I like it. It definitely unbalanced the game. But okay, the knight is still, looking. I don't like this move, rook d3. That looks like a time trouble mistake.
Well, they are in time pressure. 5 seconds. That means Bryce must have made the move with 1 second to go. Oh my gosh.
And now the knight is eyeballing knight e7 check.
Oh no.
And maybe queen takes f5. Knight e7 check looks like it should win. Queen takes f5. And
absolutely, just
nicely, by the way, defending the b1 square. So, knight takes. That's a great square. I can't argue against it, but I
queen takes looks so good. But these two are now in heavy time pressure. That knight on f5 though just looks a little insecure, and
especially with rook b1 on tap.
With rook b1 coming, he missed.
1 second. Don't lose on time. Oh my God.
1 second.
He played with 0 seconds.
Woo.
No, he must have played with 0 seconds, right? Because the only way to get 5 seconds is
exactly.
He played with
2 seconds.
You mean 0 point something? So now we get a trade, and now he's gained a little bit of time back on the clock. This one truly heart palpitating, but can white push through? Rook e5 looks like
I would play g4 in an instant just because knights love security. Protect the knight. By the way, queen check means that the knight on the pawn on h6 will be hanging. And look at this, gaining some time. That was very nice. Those queen checks, that really helped. So again, protect the knight before thinking about advancing the pawn.
Get a couple more checks in while you're at it. Queen to c8 check. And you can bring the queen back because of knight takes check. Queen f8 would allow knight h6. So now in queen d7, you got him on the back rank. You might want to move your king to g2 at the moment, just to get a little freebie and get off that diagonal. And he's done so. And the issue is, can he get c5 home? Is c5 going to be playable?
Oh, okay. I wasn't 100% sure that I liked the queen on c8 because I thought I could play c5 and c6.
Well, he could do it now.
I was afraid of rook c5. But okay, in this, queen h7. I was about to say he could go after the h pawn, and he did that. And this looks crushing now. Knight takes. That's a winner. Queen g8 check. Knight f5 check. And white is definitely winning this position.
White is the 13-year-old, the youngster who drew his first game and is looking to be tied for first after 2 rounds, guys.
No, Praveen.
Oh no, Praveen did win 2 games. I'm sorry.
Yes,
my apologies.
We do have 2.
We do have a leader at the moment.
A player with 2 out of 2. F3. Okay. Be very, very leery of opening up the second rank there. I thought he should have played king g3, but okay. Still winning. How do you win?
How do you win?
I want to go. He went check.
He needs to trade queens. Trading queens wins the game. So queen e3 is possible. Queen e3. No, but that doesn't trade. That doesn't do it.
Don't
you need
h6. Oh wow. Okay, we forgot we had another passer over here.
Oh, I didn't forget about that pawn. I was just worried that the king might be under pressure somehow. What's
You
the
have
deal?
queen f2, so queen e1, queen f2, but then I have queen e5, keeping things a little interesting.
He played
He did play queen e1, king g2 played.
I was far more worried about queen h1, by the way. H1 was my thought, but now with the queen out of there, I'm thrilled. Why did he leave? This is starting to look
great
excellent.
Suddenly, yeah. Now we've got queen check. Now we've got the queen trade you were pressing for, Maurice. Queen h8 check and queen g7.
Oh, that's money.
That's a way to
That's
trade
it.
queens.
For sure. That is absolutely what I want.
Yes.
Definitely would get the game done and over, and black in big trouble trying to figure out where to hide the king. There's nowhere to hide the king. H7 is coming.
I think Brace is just losing on time here. Oh.
No, he moved, but you just got the check.
And he saw queen g7. He says, sign me up for that ending. I'm ready to trade queens and push my pawn home.
Resigns.
Push him, baby.
He's losing on time anyway. It's
Yeah,
time.
H7.
I mean, this is pointless. He's making moves. His queen is pinned. He'll get a spite check.
He doesn't have time to resign.
Indeed. I mean, it's just there's no moves to make. It's
There
just
you
over.
go. Wow, Christopher Yu, our youngest competitor.
That was a heart thumping game, guys. Going down to 0 seconds. I hope his dad wasn't watching. I couldn't handle it.
Because he made this move and his clock said 5, which means that he made his move with a fraction of a second.
Just in time. Just in time. Was that the last game?
He outplay. He outplayed his opponent in the time pressure. They rook e5. Oh boy.
Oh my goodness.
All right, now that the games are over, I just turned on Stockfish.
Yes.
And Stockfish says his exchange sack was the best move in the position.
Wow.
Rook takes on e5 is absolutely the right move. And after the queen d6, after the move was played, queen takes on a5 was also precisely the best move to play.
And by the way, Maurice, one other point that VAR sent me, 59h6 was a massive blunder because rook takes f3 check, double exclam. Would have
You mean where I wanted to play queen h1? He had rook f3?
Rook f3 and then queen f4 check and queen just on a pendulum. You can't get out of the checks apparently.
You mean it allows a draw?
Yeah.
Sorry, you're saying knight h6 was a blunder?
No. Much later. Much later, guys. When the pawn played to h6.
Right here? Right here, yeah?
Because you also have like the stalemate, right? You're stalemated. So like rook f3, king f3, queen.
So that's an immediate draw. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Immediate draw.
And
No. You can't take on f5. That would
have king f3.
You have to take on f3 because the G pawn exists.
I'm sorry.
Rook f3.
Yeah. Yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah, and now draws are imminent.
And why would rook g4 also work then?
It probably does. No. Rook g4 allows king takes, and now your G pawn is mobile.
Because when I sacrifice my queen, you're gonna take it and free my G pawn. Nice little mad rook trick. Unfortunately, Bryce couldn't find it with no time on the clock. But
well, that would have been a superstar trick to find in time pressure. What a save! Oh
I know that would have been there. Praveen Balakrishnan is leading the event with 2 wins out of 2, as Jeffrey Zhang, our favorite, Brandon Jacobson, and Christopher Yu trail with a solid 1.5 out of 2. But we still have one more round of action today. Amazing. And we're going to be back with it right after our break. So stay with us.
The next story comes from the Olympiad, and these days, modern Olympiads really revolve around the Bermuda Party. The Bermuda Chess Federation hosts a party on one of the free days featuring some very serious black rum. And everybody goes to the party and really has a very good time. Well, one of the great chess legends in the world from the Ukraine Vasil Ivanchuk, one of the sweetest guys you're ever going to meet on the circuit. So he comes to me, and this is Vasil, the sweet, sweet, sweet guy, and he's shaking in his fists. He's got his fist clenched, and he goes, "Yasser, you called me a bad duty." And I could see he wanted to fight me, and he was gonna punch my lights out. But what did he just say? And I said, "What did you say, Vasil?" "You called me a bad duty." I had clueless what he was trying to say to me. So I said, "Could you write it down?" And he wrote B-A-D, bad, D-U-D-E, bad dude. And I go, "Oh yeah, in my magazine I called you a bad dude." "Yes, you called me bad dude." What does it mean? So now I'm searching for the definition of bad dude, and I can't come up with anything. And I say, "Do you know Clint Eastwood?" And he goes, "Bang, bang, bang, bang." And I go, "Yeah." He said, "You think I'm Clint Eastwood?" And I go, "Yeah." "Oh, friend." And I avoided a very bad beating.
Can you hear it? It's the sound of hope and health and strength. It's the sound of compassion, of open doors, where people and machines are in tune and miracles occur. It's the sound of personalized healthcare and active communities. It sounds like life, and it's what you hear when you really listen.
If you have kids, you already know St. Louis has a ton of fun stuff for families to do, like the Magic House or the Science Center. And if you really want to be a stellar parent, come see all the new stuff there is to discover at St. Louis Union Station. With a new mirror maze, light shows, and the 20-story high St. Louis wheel, it's enough to make any parent feel like a star. St. Lou is always exploring.
Since 2009, our mission has always been to teach and promote the value chess brings to our community. In these times of social distancing, it's more important than ever that we stay connected to carry on that mission.
We are currently offering 24 weekly classes online through our YouTube and Twitch channels. We're also holding tournaments and private lessons online.
From the comfort of their own home, students can enjoy all the benefits of our Scholastic Chess Initiative digitally. Our Scholastic outreach continues with virtual chess classrooms, Scholastic tournaments, and Scouts BSA merit badge workshops.
On behalf of everyone at the St. Louis Chess Club, we hope you and your loved ones stay safe and continue to watch, play, and enjoy the game of chess.
A St. Louis Public Radio journalist's most precious possession isn't a notepad, camera, microphone, or recording device. Their most precious possession is credibility. A journalist's work revolves around the truth, finding it, verifying it, and reporting it. Great journalists work hard to find the facts and put those facts into context, examining all the arguments and including differing opinions, amplifying fascinating voices from our community, telling captivating stories, offering facts that may have been omitted. We work every day to earn your trust. For news, turn to St. Louis Public Radio.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the 2020 U.S. Junior Championships. We have one more round of day one, round three, and here are our standings with Pravian at the top of the table. He's got 2 points, and then we've got Jeffrey, Brandon, and Christopher all with 1.5 points. And a big round coming up, guys. Let's take a look at the pairings for our third round of the event. I always feel like round three is somehow a really important round, and I think that's even more true when they're playing online. It's also a tiring round. John Burke just off a win playing against Christopher Yu, who's up there in the top of the cross table, also coming up from a win. Another big game would be Brandon versus Praving, as Praving's already strung together 2 wins, guys.
Yes, exactly. And I'm looking also at Sam Sevian, as Maurice was saying at the opening of the show, number 5 in the world, the world's top junior player. Number 5 is Sam Sevian at a -1 score. How strong is this field? Well, we're finding out. So is Sam. And Jeffrey Zhang, our tournament favorite, going up against Nico. Which game strikes your fancy, Jen?
Well, I think Brandon playing against Praving, that's a great one to start out with.
Sure. Absolutely.
Yeah, they're both coming off of victories.
Exactly. And again, Maurice, you had interviewed a number of the players, and I was listening very carefully to what Sam Sevian had said, that he really wanted the experience of playing this time control, because when you play online, you tend to play a lot of bullet or 5-minute or 3-minute, and you don't really play a lot of rapid chess. So you're not quite sure if you're playing classical chess or blitz. And well, he's getting the experience, but maybe not the results he wanted.
Definitely not the results he wanted, but at least he's not doing this in the U.S. Championship. So he can just get those cobwebs out now.
Right.
Although it's still going to be some time in between this event and the U.S. Championship, because we do have 2 events in between that. We will have the Senior Championship, and we will have the U.S. Women's as well. So at least 8 days by my count, 9 days.
Right.
Yeah, and that's right, Maurice. And I think that's fantastic for Sam. By the way, I know he's also participating in a fundraiser simul hosted by the American Chess Academy to benefit the Armenia Fund. So Sam is going to be very busy, but he's also going to have a lot of time to see what he did wrong here and improve it potentially for the U.S. Championship.
My concern is that he's not going to have the form he wanted to be in, though. It'd been nice if he could play it back to back.
Right.
If you will, because it doesn't look like it's an opening problem.
I don't know about that.
He had a great opening in game 2. Great opening.
I guess they're juniors, but still, I feel like they could be a little bit tired, especially if you have a bad result. You don't want to like continue the negative momentum. So we'll see, though. He still has 7 rounds to change things around, right? I mean, there are a lot of decisive games in junior chess. So, and he can make it happen right now, as we've got this Rossalimo on tap.
Hold on, which game are you on?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I was actually
You're talking about Sam. But we can talk about this game.
Let's stay with Brandon and Praveen at the moment, given that he's in first.
But it's Rossalimo. It's a very imbalanced position. Sam's going to have his chances to try to fight back and win against one of the underdogs in the event, and at least end the day with an even score. Meanwhile, what do you make of this opening, Yasser?
Oh, sorry. You wanted? Did you want
the
me to
Brandon
switch
game?
To Sam? Okay, because sorry, I got completely messed up. Yeah, no, it's a Catalan E2, E4. Well, that's a real shocker, as the last move by Praveen was B7, B6, as he was looking to develop his bishop either to B7 or to A6, and he's just kind of stunned by the move E4. So let's try to figure this one out. If we take this pawn, there's no bishop A6 because the knight's not on B8. So that doesn't refute it. And if we take the pawn like this, knight takes.
This is the real question. This is absolutely the real question here. What is the result of this position? It looks like since F5 is not playable, you can play with, because of knight E6, if you play F5, and that would be a big problem, forking your pieces. Then it seems that you're going to have to play something straightforward, like a knight f6. And I never like these positions where the knights come off completely and all you have is a little tiny bit of space. Just feel like maybe not bishop b7 immediately because of c5 trickery. Who knows? Well, I guess you could play bishop takes on c5 and then take on d2. That's one interesting line. But nevertheless, it always feels like these types of positions peter out into nothing because you just don't have something to count on here. So what do? Knight g5, knight f6 seems to trade off knights. What's the deal?
Exactly.
Knight f5,
Well,
knight f6 seems, you're not playing bishop takes, that just loses, but takes. And
but I mean, it is these types of positions that you do tend to want to play because at least there's some imbalances going on in the position. These two pawns on a d4 and c4 give white some kind of a spatial edge. If black ever manages, I know what you mean, Maurice, if black ever manages to play c6, c5.
That's my big concern.
Yeah, whatever advantages you may think you have, well, they kind of disappear. On the other hand, is that the position that black wants to play? A lot of players who play these, let us say, semi-Slav positions, they're not looking for a completely balanced game. They want to kind of keep things a little bit alive. So how about a suggestion of, say, bishop b7? You can take with the knight on e4. If you take with the bishop, then I'll play knight f6. Something like this, where I'm kind of keeping more play in the position, trying to play for c6, c5.
Right, because you actually think that the other position is rather than being not enough for white, you think it's just too easy for white to play, just to resolve. I think one of the problems is like, I don't think it's going to be like child's play for you to just play queen e7 and c5, right? Because queen c2, I can play c5. I mean, I have to watch out for takes and my bishop hanging on d2, but depending on how you protect against h7 here, you certainly don't want to play f5 or g6. So I guess you're stuck with h6, right?
Right.
Elimination.
Right. And then something like bishop e3, and like you're saying, Jen, either when you play either for c5 and or for e5, white's pieces are going to usually take advantage of the open roads. And I don't want to say it's two-result game, but I do think that white tends to be the one who's pushing more than black. Now, having said that, this move, e2, e4, is really surprised Praveen a great deal, and he's in the tank.
Tank indeed, and I think if you're black, you better be careful.
Right.
Because if you let white get a bit of activity as well, then white, who's got the lead in development at the moment, he's decided to avoid all of the above.
And it was like
play bishop a6 with a fork being allowed.
Yeah, just like perfect timing. And I wanted to ask you guys, well, what do you think about this? Two pawns and a rook for two minor pieces. For example, after the move bishop a6, e5, bishop takes c4. Let's say I just drop with my queen back, take my rook, I'll take the bishop, and let's say I just recapture. So I've got two pawns for a rook against two minor pieces. Which side do you guys prefer, white or black?
Well, unless white gets some activity, black's about to play the move c5.
Yeah. Rook c8.
And put a rook on c8 and get all that play.
Mm-hmm.
That looks. I don't see how to get white's pieces to dominate there.
Maybe my move, queen to d1, is a little too cooperative. Let me at least try to stay active with the move queen
And how did you get the
A4.
scepter bishop a6 again? You did e5 right away. So Varusian is looking at this and suggesting c takes d5.
C takes d5. That was my, yes, I had this thought. C takes d5, bishop f1, and sack and exchange directly.
Yeah, this is, he says this is a huge edge for white.
Yes, this position I like. This position I like. I was about to say it. Thanks, Varusian, for confirming. This idea looks dynamic because now you can't take on d5 without allowing e5, and you don't get the same material advantage that you did before.
Take on, if you don't allow e5, what, you know, I have e6 and c6 under attack. Like, this is a brutal situation.
It's a ready compensation. It's a ready compensation.
Yeah, I mean, which pawn do I
Fantastic.
take as? The other pawn looks juicy too.
It looks fantastic.
The c6 pawn looked appealing, but this one looks even more appealing. You're right. As there's king in the background there. By the way, there's one other fascinating game between John Burke and Christopher Yu currently underway. As Christopher Yu is one of our front runners as well, 1.5 going into the round. It was a really interesting game, a French defense where John Burke played this sacrifice, this pawn sacrifice, and Christopher denied it. If you want to look at the
declined it, you mean?
Declined it. That's right. He declined the Milner-Barry, right? But instead played for g5, trying to destabilize the pawn. It's funny, he doesn't take the pawn earlier, but then the plan of playing for g5 is to take the pawn later.
Right.
But take it on terms that you're even more excited about.
And we do have, we're up to date with the players. We just saw a trade as we're expecting the move g4.
Now g4, it looks like a great move until you see that at least I can play b5 and try to counterpunch you. So how does that look? g4, b5, g takes f3. If you take on f3 here, and I take on c6, you don't have time for any kind of like funny business like rook g8 or anything like that. Or, you know, because you take on g2, I take on d7 with check.
Exactly.
So yeah, this seems like it turned out okay for white, because at the end of the day, the one thing we don't want to lose is the d4 pawn. And then, you know, you're going to force a trade of queens. We don't want that. White wants to keep the queens on the board here. And it looks like the material is equal, and white just has a great position here.
Right. So that is why Christopher's taking his time here, as he's realizing that maybe the intended g4 b5 is actually in white's favor, and maybe he has to take the pawn.
And he did. And immediately, I mean, John Burke must be still in his theory. It seems like he is, guys. It makes sense too, because this is like his main line potentially for white, or his preparation for white, whereas this is obviously not the main line against the French. Christopher Yu would not be as likely to be as prepared as a person who's just, you know, sharpening this exact knife. So after rook to b1, a3 is now the threat. So what do?
We got to move the queen.
Like a5 or something, or
the queen a5 sidestepping the pin. And like you said, a2, a3 was on white's agenda. I could go back with a queen, but maybe I'm kind of loose to some tactics. So queen a5 looks right.
Yeah, queen a5, and now what does white do? So I can't take on g5 because you have bishop g5 and knight takes d3.
Right,
So
that will cost a piece.
Lose material.
Right.
Well, white didn't go into this to get pawns back.
Look at that stuff, because it's actually even close there with like bishop a3 and rook b5 in the position. And you're looking at rook b4 here.
I suspect he has some exchange sacrifice in mind, like rook takes b4 followed by knight takes g5.
That looks interesting, because if you take with the bishop, and there it is, rook takes b4 on the board.
Yeah, and I suspect this was his preparation, because white has sure been playing these moves. Like if you just look at the clocks, white has spent all of 24, well, white's got 24 minutes, let me put it that way. He spent all of 1 minute to play all of these moves.
And I think that's why this line is white against the French is somewhat appealing, because it is a little bit more of a narrow path, right? Like he has to see, he clearly like studied these lines with g5, and this is all in his trap. Which way do you take back on b4? I assume you want to take with the queen so that you have the protection of the bishop on e7.
Yeah, I was thinking that I take with the queen just because I want to. I feel like I'm on a roller coaster ride, and I'm probably going to lose after bishop a3. But and by the way, he took with the queen, and knight takes g5 again. I mean, white is gaining time on his clock, Jen. I mean, it's like all of these moves, bang, bang, bang. And I know how Christopher is feeling because it's not, he doesn't feel like he's playing an opponent. He feels like he's playing against his opponent's homework.
It's very scary right now.
Right.
I mean, that line you showed just looked horrible. Bishop g5,
Terrifying.
queen g5, queen d4, bishop a3. That didn't look like something I was going to survive. I mean, you play like knight c5 or something, and then I have knight b3. It looks like it just wins on the spot.
Yeah, it's something terrible. Yeah, this looks like really gross. Like
death on the dark player.
Yeah. All kinds of things have gone wrong suddenly here for black. So unfortunately for black, you can't take. Now maybe rook g8 and just hope for something lucky in the stars. I don't know.
I think so. I think don't take that knight, but it still looks, oh boy, it looks so dangerous. And especially knowing that your opponent might have the next few moves calculated too.
As well, yeah. Exactly.
So if rook g8, you're attacking my knight, so I have to decide whether or not to play, like whether the move knight f7 actually works, or if I'm just going to play
knight f3. Just bring the troops over. Queen f4 on white's agenda. Knight f7 and queen h6. Also,
but the issue,
yes,
the issue is not rook g8. I mean, the issue is again, what are black's best moves? Is white signaling a threat at the moment? Is it knight e6? Is it knight f7? Why do we need to attack this knight on g5? And even your last move of knight f3, what is going to be the next move? Is it going to be knight f7, given that he can play bishop g5? So for black, what black wants is to pick the knight up off of d7, put it somewhere, take the bishop off of c8, put it somewhere, and get his king out the middle as soon as possible. And any of the moment you say I can castle, I am gone. That's all I want to do. I'm up in exchange. And how do I get it there? And he's played a remarkable choice. Knight back to b8. He's thinking the same thing I was thinking, but putting the knight back on b8 is not what I would have wanted to do. That's not the way I would like to get my pieces. You really believe he's thinking he's going to get enough time to play knight c6 with tempo on the d4 pawn, then play the bishop, and then hopefully get time to castle, which, by the way, f7 is hanging. So he's still got work to do when he castles. That knight takes on f7 will be on the agenda. So I'm not sure this solves all his problems.
I don't think it solves any of his problems. I think knight b8 compounded the problem. I think you're absolutely right, Maurice. He should have played knight b6, bishop d7, and get out of dodge by castling queenside ASAP. The problem with knight b8, of course, the knight is superior on the c6 square than the b6 square. It does, after all, attack the pawn on d4. The problem is precisely what we're looking at right now, is that you just don't have time for all of these nice things that you're trying to do. Moves like rook f8 might just end up getting splat by knight. I mean, I could have played knight h7 and been a little bit more pedantic, but knight takes f7 and bishop g6 looks like a crusher. So the problem is that you don't have the time.
That was not the way to do it. He needed to get his knight to another square. I wasn't sure what that square was going to be, frankly.
Knight b6, yeah.
Knight b6. Again, we're talking about the speed of the attack. So knight b6. And now if knight f3, bishop d7, and if queen f4.
Just castle, give back some material just to
give something up to get out of this. And now the knight is actually pinned. So
you're kicking here. I mean, and on a good day you get to play king b8 and maybe
you hope for the best.
Yeah, you got to tickle. Right, exactly.
That should have been a clear direction. Knight b8 is audacious.
Well, the only good news for Christopher is that his opponent is thinking for the first time of the game, because apparently Knight b8 wasn't at the top of the tree.
I'm sorry, that could be good news or bad news. The bad news is your move is not in the book at all. The computer didn't suggest it. That means I just need to go find out what's wrong with it. And
exactly.
Yeah, I paused for a minute, but it might be a minute that I use to destroy you as I find the right way to go. And of course, Knight f3 on the board, and we see Queen f4
looming,
a thunderous threat, looming clouds now over the youngster's position. By the way, you went after my f8 rook, Yaz, in one line.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, please just take the rook. Is that all you want?
No.
Be merciful. Just take the rook.
Take the exchange down.
Yeah, just take the exchange back. Is that all you want? I mean, just be kind, be nice. I
right.
You can have that.
Right. Something like this, right? You were like, yeah, go ahead. You can have the rook. Like,
let me castle.
Let me get out of here.
Away. Just can I castle on the neck? Can the brother get out of the middle of the board, please? That's just all I'm asking for. But instead, you said no, a sack on g7, and then play bishop g6. Like, oh, that hurt.
That hurt.
I didn't appreciate.
Knight c6, Queen f4 landed on the board, and I love how you put it, Maurice. Good news, bad news. When your opponent starts thinking, and he didn't even think for very long. But I got to tell you one thing: I like having this John Burke in this tournament. It is like his games have been like absolutely scintillating, and he's going to be the Talia Cervantes of this tournament if he wins this game. Right, 3 decisive games out of 3.
Wow.
He did 9 out of 9, Maurice. She had 5 wins and 4 losses.
Amazing. Amazing. That's a little bit too much.
She didn't have the game of the tournament. Talia did not have the game of it, but she had the move of the tournament. There was this awesome move, his rook d2 move. She was a rook down.
Oh, I saw it. I did see it. I did see it.
The bishop came back
on c3 instead of taking the draw.
That's right. That's right. No perpetual checks for Talia.
That was amazing position.
That was a nice game.
No,
yeah, nice
we you know, it pays to be young.
I know.
Right? The older you get, the less it's like you're gonna live on the edge every single move. You know,
right.
You used to party and drink and go out late, and then you hit the 40s, you start dragging in.
You never drag, Maurice.
No.
Maurice I sip a little Hennessy now, but
yes, touche, a little Hennessy.
but indeed, but by the way, we have to take a look
at Jeffrey's game, right?
Jeffrey's game, because Jeffrey, he's being hunted by Nicholas, who's decided that it's only a pawn sack it's not even a pawn sack actually when I look at it.
Jeffrey is playing a kind of a variation we called the hippopotamus. I don't know if it's called that way today, but one fellow who played the hippopotamus was one Tigran Petrosian. He played it in the World Championship match against Boris Spassky in f5, and we've got this position.
I mean, what happens after bishop h5 check? Where are you putting your king?
That's what White is thinking about.
What's to think about?
Well, it's the intermezzo, because perhaps Jeffrey was thinking that he had this little treacherous idea planned, that he was going to castle and maybe eliminate the bishop, put the rook on f4 and the knight on e5. But you're absolutely right, Maurice. It's this, whoops. Hello, did Jeffrey? Oh,
why are we doing that? And he didn't do it. He just took back immediately. But you know what? You had a chance.
It's still
once.
There.
You can do it twice. Why not play that check? Now, in this position, I have to admit there is the possibility of king f8 and queen f6. I don't want to trade, but it is a pawn sack if it happens. Let's take a look at that. Bishop h5 check, king f8, queen takes on d4. And now queen f6.
Exactly.
We can't trade queens because knight takes hits your bishop. Wait a minute. I didn't have bishop f3. But I don't want to play this boring position, and you got out of most danger here.
Right.
because here he could play c5 and shut everything down after you take on d5. He doesn't end up with a weakness on the c7 square. You got your pawn back, but so what? This is no party. No, we don't. This is not what we want.
This is not what you wanted. Okay.
So instead, he just played queen takes immediately, but still,
but
queen f6 is possible, and it's on the board.
Yeah, I'm a little bit, I'm a lot of bit confused. I thought that Jeffrey played bishop takes d4 with a very specific idea of castles, and the idea is, let's say you take, and then in such a position, Jeffrey would put his pieces on the dark squares of f4 and e5, and the queen would go to f6. And, that was his plan. He didn't do that.
His plan wasn't that. His plan was this, that's in front of us. His main point was to play for this position, it looks like, with queen on f6 right now. And he's saying, I'm going to get a solid position. The other position you talked about, that c7 pawn would be weak and the bishop on b7 would still be on the board looking for a home, even though you got a couple of dark squares, at least for the moment. G3 might kick you out of there at some point. Yeah, as with that setup that you played.
Right.
So this line, he's saying, I'm going solid. I'm going to prove to you that you have nothing, despite this, what looked like a good move, bishop to h5 check, exposing your king. It's a clean pawn sack. In fact, it could be a double pawn sack. I know this kid is thinking, how dare you leave your king in the middle of the board and have all these weaknesses? How dare you? How do I get you? How do I prove this wrong? But it's not clear how to do it.
Let me just take a gander here. I'm going to try queen d2. So I intend to meet d4 with the move knight b5, and I'll win back my pawn that way.
With a good game.
You take my pawn. I had intended to play f4. Or maybe bishop check first, followed by f4.
Well, you don't want him to castle. Queen side. Right? So f4 allows castles queen side. So we need the king to do something first. Now, this is the gamble position we're playing.
Right.
What's happening here?
And I always feel like when we get into these matchups where Jeffrey is the big pre-tournament favorite is to put the favorite under a lot of pressure, right? Not to make his life easy. And this kind of a gambit, he did play queen e3. The reason I played queen d2 and not the move queen e3 was I didn't like queen e5, because in this case, it's somehow magical. The queen went from d8 to e5. Like, what? And it was like, yeah. So black, basically his queen on e5, in my view, is simply too powerful. It's really a great piece.
Really?
Yeah.
But what if you check him on h5?
Okay, let's say I go king d8.
Okay, so now, what is your next move?
I'm trading queens and I'm taking a pawn.
Okay, I just want to make sure, because my point was I'm moving my queen, but I just want to know if you're taking your pawn, because I get to play a rook to e1 and f4 as well, and your king is still stuck. So let's say you play like this and rook e1.
Oh,
okay.
So I've got a tempo, another annoying tempo. That's annoying. I know what you mean. You were just about to play f4 a second ago. I know. I got you by a half a ply.
You do. And I want to play queen e2, knight e5, g3, but knight f3 comes with authority. So it doesn't seem like I get there.
Yeah, knight f3 or some crazy move like that.
Okay, he didn't see what to do, so he decided to go just for the positional advantage, transferring from one exposed king, the advantage, to a supposedly weak pawn on c7. I got to say, I'm not that impressed by this position for white.
No,
I think
in
that
fact, I prefer Black's position.
Yeah, I'm about to say, I think
Yeah.
Black's going to have easy play in this kind of position.
Right. I don't see this pawn as a weakness, especially, for example, after castles. And I just see this knight as a tremendous piece. It just it defends some business squares along the file. It plugs up the e file. And, you know, if you could play rook f8 and castles long in a single turn, I would almost call it a decisive positional advantage for Black. The only reason I didn't suggest rook f8 right away was knight b5. I might find it a little disturbing to play against knight b5.
Let's go back to that game with John and Chris, because he played knight h7 instead of the move knight takes g6, which does have some tactical complications associated with it.
Yeah, we didn't look at the ramifications of a line like this, but okay. I'm sure it's good for white, by the way. But knight h7 was his choice, yes, and rook g8 on the board.
And rook g8, and the kid is trying to defend. His time pressure could be a factor as he's down a full 10 minutes on the clock at the moment.
But then the other knight comes to g5. This looks fantastic. I mean, what are you going to do now? Like, you can't move your rook back to f8. Rook g7 looks, I was just going to say rook g7 looks bad because of knight f6. And then I'm hitting your rook after you capture it. You can run after knight f6.
Run, run.
I wrote this book, King Walks, and I'm afraid to say the book is rubbing off on me. I'm seeing King Walks in too many games, but I'm expecting the king to run, Jen. Knight f6 check, king to d8. I think this position,
it's important. It's important. The rook is well placed. I mean, it's not the greatest piece. It would love to have everybody around it, like another rook on h8. Actually, I like to pick up the rook from a8 and put it on h8.
Right.
And now let's discuss the position.
Exactly.
But that's not going to happen for a while. In the meantime, though, the d4 pawn is indeed okay. I was going to say it's hanging, then you defended it. So much for that.
Yeah, I got to defend it because it is hanging. Yeah, right.
And now, could I please get my rook on a8 into the game? I mean, what the heck? Can we play bishop d7 and king c7 one day? Can bishop d7 be real? But rook b1 is also a move.
Yeah, I was just going after the h-pawn, Maurice. I had to defend the knight on g5 so that when I played knight on f6 takes h5, my g5 knight isn't hanging. But you're right. I could have also considered rook to b1 and rook takes b7. In either case, White's exchange sacrifice is paying big dividends on the king side. I wasn't looking at rook b1 as much. It just
happened because of the move bishop to d7, which means I can't play bishop to d7. I have to back that move up because rook b1 is too concrete. In addition to your h4, what do? I don't want to waste time with b6. Could I play king? I can't play king c7 because of knight e8 check.
Yeah. In the immortal words of Larry Christensen, I'm getting you from behind.
Oh my gosh, that's pain. And so I can't do that. So what am I supposed to do?
I think you got to play queen a3. It's not like you're happy. I'm at least for the moment tickling the bishop. If the bishop were to retreat, play something like b6 and just pray that you'll get your pieces out. I just feel that once White gets in this beautiful h4, knight takes h5, he claims the game. It's just too awesome. I think Christopher, along with his time trouble woes, is realizing that his position really is under fire. What else is going on, Jen?
Well, we should go back to that game between Brandon and Praveen, or actually Christopher. Let's look at Christopher and Josh, because that game is looking really interesting as well. Well, interesting particularly for Josh.
Mm-hmm.
Is Black
this
doing
night
well
out.
again? Jeez, Black.
I
I
mean,
know. Sometimes you have those tournaments where White just wins every game, and it like whoever plays Black and whatever Black is doing, he's just getting crushed and smashed and everything. And then sometimes you have those really peculiar tournaments where White doesn't seem to get any advantage out of the opening. And so far, it's one of the peculiar varieties. This looks promising for Black.
Hey, wait, big news.
Yes.
Big news. Sam is down an exchange.
Uh-oh.
But he has a pawn for it.
Sam Sevian. We haven't looked at his game as much this round because
This is a nice knight. Ooh, this is a really nice knight. And these pawns on the queen side are nice.
And this came from a Rossalimo opening, so I can see the textures of this. This is why Black has the two bishops, because there must have been bishop c6 earlier, and now the pawns.
Hold on, guys. Look at this. You know, curiosities are our bread and butter.
Right.
How did this pawn structure become this pawn structure on the queen side?
Yeah, that's
How
what
did it happen?
It was a Rossalimo, so it must have been bishop c6, d takes c6.
Yeah, but then you need another. A what? You need a bunch of captures for this to happen.
Yeah, knight
captures.
b4. Okay.
And there we go.
That was a very peculiar, yeah, curiouser and curiouser. A5. Wow, why do you need A5? But okay, bishop D2. I suppose Bryce is thinking about knight G5 and maybe on a good day following it up with G4 and Sam to play. So Sam has a pawn for the exchange, right?
Yeah, he's basically winning on the queen side.
Right.
So
and he has played bishop
to G7. White's all in on the king side, trying to make his rooks work. You can be up in exchange. Congratulations. If your rooks are not doing anything, there's no point. There's no worry on the side of the player who's down, and he can play for his own activity. The problem here is, what exactly is Black supposed to be doing as well? It's like both questions. Both sides have the same question. What are we supposed to do?
Well, from White's point of view, I mean, clearly the move bishop D2 was designed to make way for knight G5 and to try to cause some issues for Black. So for example, H6, let's say I go back. Now, do you want to play G5, which gives me, you know, sacrificial possibilities? If you go King H8, well, I mean,
King
you're Sam Sevian
sends it back.
Yeah,
but G5, go ahead. Let's see it. Let's bring it. Let's go. Let's go. I guess Queen G3.
You have to start worrying about the sacrifices on G5.
I'm not worried about the sacrifices. I'm worried about you playing this solidly and trying to make my position look terrible after H4. You didn't even sacrifice. I noticed the way you said you have to start worrying about sacrifices, and then you brought the queen back to G3 and played H4. And
well, I wasn't sure that the sacrifices right away like necessarily lead anywhere, right? Like, should this work?
It doesn't look like it leads to what you really want.
Right.
Maybe it looks a little suspicious.
It looks a little suspicious. Looks a little suspicious.
No, but your idea of Queen G3 and H4 just looks so natural that it's going to cause real pain for him as well. So
let me just go back and forth to get an update on the current position. And we've seen a repetition, by the way. After bishop G7, bishop H6, this is, so it's possible that after day one, Sam will be -1.
Yep.
Quite remarkable.
Back to that game with John Burke, by the way, A5 played by the youngster, cold-blooded, hit me if you can, but your H4 is on the board, and now bishop D7. I'm not sure what A5 did in this moment.
I don't think that really helped the cause, so to speak. But here, unfortunately, it's not about the queen side, the pawn on B7 falling or the bishop on D7 being traded. It's really about the king side going to ruin. I mean, if the rook, which is under attack, moves, queen takes F7, e6 pawn comes under attack. The knight can easily swing its way back to f6. And by the way, that h pawn really is passed. So it just feels like, you know, Christopher got really out prepared. Very, very nice preparation by John Burke in this game.
Down 10
Very
minutes on the clock
inspiring
as well.
For people who struggle against the French, is he got a really nice attacking game here.
Right out of the opening. Let's just quickly jump back to that ending that we were kind of liking for Jeffrey. Jeffrey went rook f8, knight b5, and then, okay. And, well, there were some confusing moves there that I didn't really quite understand, but now that we're here, what is here? Shall we ask the obvious question? What does Jeffrey intend to do about f4?
He's been trying to stop this move for a while, but maybe he's hoping the pawn will move too far too fast.
Something like this, yes?
Yeah.
And now your king has to go to, let us say, a lesser square. Now here, my spidey sense is tingling. This tells me I got stuff in the position. The king is bad. How I take advantage of it, that's another question. But the king is bad. All right, let's see. So push, and how do we judge such a position? This pawn on f6 is limiting the ability of the king to breathe. I want to play bishop e6. That's my impression.
Yeah, you're almost forcing me to take this piece off.
Well, this might be your best piece in the position. Now, if you trade it off, you do give me a really good looking.
But I was going to play king d7 and rook to d8, rook to e8, rook a8. I'm trying to prove that you have weakness, but you won't let me get in there.
No, you're never going to get me. It's like in one game you were saying, Maurice, that you wanted to go, if you teleport your rook, you wanted to go rook on a8 to h8. If you could do that, you'd be better.
Yeah, I mean, could I just get out of the middle, please?
Yeah, I mean, please.
Maybe I should have played rook f7 in that position.
Okay, let's
But
go
I
back.
still am, because your knight is tied down, so rook f7.
My
And
knight is tied down.
your knight is tied to the d pawn. So if I and f4 is on the board. So
F4
all the moves we're talking, all the moves are on the board. We're racing towards this position. The kings are now on d8, and we're anticipating that move you played f5. So if rook f7, the idea is to play. We're currently here, so the idea is to play rook f7. Wait a minute, there was another
Rook
idea.
f7, yeah.
Sorry, I had another idea. Was play rook. You play rook up and king. What if I snuck in rook g8? Back up. What if I snuck in rook g8?
Where?
Here.
Right here?
Yeah.
I think you're asking for a
I just,
world of hurt.
I know. Rook f7 is solid, but what is your move?
Rook e1
takes, and now I can't.
I got
and if
check.
you have a
cases.
check. You have a check.
That's important because
That's
if you could play
important.
king
Okay.
d7, yeah.
Yeah, if I could swing. So I'm too ambitious because you stopped me from being able to play king e8. And I can't play king e8 right now because you have check right away. So, okay, so let's keep it going. I take your bishop, you take, and I play rook f7.
Yes, from this position. Mm-hmm.
And challenge you here. I want to play king up, rook over, force you to defend everybody.
Boy, I feel like it's one of these really amazingly sharp endgame positions, and like everything depends upon a tempo, right? Like if you get rook e8 and rook e5, you win the game because the pawn on d5 is lost. If I get in g5 and g6, I win the game because I win the game.
So what happens on rook e8 now?
I think that's a very good move. I've got to defend my knight, unfortunately. I lose time if I have to defend my knight.
Oh, you even allowed it to be pinned.
Yeah, it's like, wow. These are,
razor sharp.
Yeah, in a razor sharp position, I see an A3.
Yeah, this is an interesting one, which will probably continue for a little while. But one that won't continue very long, I don't think, is John Burke's game against Christopher Yu, as we I think are seeing that one close out soon. Knight just went after knight h5, as you suggested. Knight just went back to f6, and sorry, that's not a repetition of position when you have taken a pawn from the road.
Right.
So
and he didn't take on f7. Well, that's remarkable. I mean that pawn had my name written all over it.
Literally, we see a Y and an S on the bottom of the pawn.
If you pick it up, it didn't say Howard Staunton. It said Yasser.
No, we just see the Y and the S. We know that's Yasser. Y. Who in the world is YS? Sure. No, it's Yasser.
And look at this last move. This is going to force the end because rook b1, and because of that pawn on e7, you can't even defend b7. And once b7 goes, I mean, queen a3, rook b7, I'm threatening queen c7 mate. So you can't.
White's getting his revenge in this one. White's getting big time revenge for the losses White suffered in previous rounds. Because look at Brandon's game against Praveen. Praveen, these knights are dancing and prancing. If you look at that position, the move h5, what was the move before this? A knight e6. Look at move rook d7, knight e6. So the rook moved, and he said knight e6. He said, dare you to take my h pawn. That's not going to happen. And dare you to take my d pawn. That's not going to happen. But the knight on e6 stopping both moves. Nobody touch anything, okay? Nobody touch anything. And then after b5, he just played h6. Look at this domination. There's got to be a win somewhere. What is the most
natural? Yeah, well, I don't know what's the most accurate, but the most natural would be to play rook g7 and just say, okay, take my pawn if you want, and then I'll win a rook. So for me, h5, d6, too many scrumptious looking moves.
D6 looks like it's just completely shutting doors everywhere. Meantime, Black's counterplay includes a5, b4, and c3. And even when you play b4, I can play rook takes c4. So that's not a variation. So White's biggest problem is actually finding the construction that ends the game. Rook g7, a5. What are you doing while he's making moves?
I don't think you're making moves very much longer, though. Let's say here.
I know. I'm just waiting for you to finish me off. Just gonna play b4 now. Just waiting for your threat to materialize.
Okay, just to clean things up a little bit, right? Just to clean things up a little bit.
Look at those knights.
They're just they're awesome. Yeah. Sometimes we fall in love with bishops, because the bishops are scorching on two diagonals and they're just doing everything. But sometimes we fall in love with knights, and this is such a moment where we can sit and admire the capability of the knights.
Yeah, that's funny, yes, because I feel like, everybody knows you love pawns. That, that is usually mentioned within the first 5 minutes of a broadcast.
Right.
It's pretty equanimous when it comes to bishops and knights. You love them both.
Well, I really do. And I actually think that the knights make chess such a magical game. In other words, we have these lateral pieces. Yeah, your bishops move on diagonals, rooks move on ranks and files, and queens do the same thing. But the knights, man, they flicker and go everywhere.
They're easily my favorite piece, and I do believe I said it earlier in this broadcast about the position when the knights came off and we only had the two bishops left, right? That the position just seemed dead to me. Once I saw the knights go off, I just felt like these linear pieces aren't going to do much to do damage in this position. It's really about the knights. And we do see the knights dominating here. And he just
prancing.
He just took the pawn on b5. He gave away his pawn on d5, which looked like a joy, a pleasure to have.
I know.
So that he can shut the door on this rook. Now out the game, and h7 happening, and that's going to be all she wrote. Complete and utter dominance of
and there it is.
The cavalry there, and resignation. So now,
beautiful game by Brandon.
Excellent game by Brandon, and Praveen with 2 points, still very much in the running, but his perfect score is now history.
Now, and Jacobson will leapfrog him. What a game. And it's true. That's amazing, Maurice, that you predicted earlier in this game. You were like, no, I don't want to trade off all the knights. And then it ended up in this position. That's hilarious. Meanwhile, let's see the Burke-Yu game finish out. I know
John Burke-Yu
totally winning, but in positions like this with the king in the center, you just kind of enjoy watching it go down. I mean,
for sure.
There's so many different possibilities.
Easy for you to say, by the way.
Depends on your point of view, Jen.
I'm talking about our spectators.
Exactly.
About our viewers. And me too. But when you go to a chess tournament and there's a huge crowd around a board.
Right. The vultures. They all come over to watch the bones, to pick on the bones.
And mercifully, it's over. He is resigned.
Indeed. And Burke now has 2 points, 2 wins, 1 loss. Christopher,
great bounce back.
Nice showing by Christopher. You won a great round 2 game. And like you said, it's hard to fault him that much in this game. It was just an amazing preparation from Burke. Tough day.
It truly is. And that when you play chess, you're going to lose games. Just get used to it. You drill for it. You just put up your best resistance. But the worst kind of game to lose is a game where you don't really feel like you ever played. It was like your opponent just went bang, 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 and you looked at, and he had more time when the game was finished than when he started. And you go, well, how much of that was your original analysis? He said, well, everything. I mean, you played all the moves that lose properly, and you're like, ah. So that was really is not fair. Those are the hurtful games. Now let's turn our attention to the game of Sam Sevian, because Sam, coming into this game, one of our pre-tournament favorites, was sitting on -1. We thought the game was going to be ending in a perpetual. It has not. The players are playing, and I got to tell you, I like Sam's position a lot.
And I like his clock too. 3 minutes to 1 minute. That could prove significant in a complicated position.
Exactly. And I just wanted to point out before he played the move Queen B6 that you can defend the pawn. How sweet it is. You can defend the pawn with Queen G6 while simultaneously threatening mate in 1. And as we know, Jennifer, mate in 1 is a strong threat. Deal with it. D4. Okay. D4.
Well, that seems like a good move. Okay, so now if your move Queen G6.
But that's what I'm trying to understand. I'm trying to understand why Sam felt it was a good idea to provoke the move D4, because D4 looks like it's on a better square than on D3.
Yeah.
But after Queen G6, what is your next move?
That's a question too. I guess I have to play Rook
C2. I like
Rook C2 walks into B3.
Exactly. Rook C2, B3. Step up a square.
Although that may not be the end of the story after Rook to F2, because the pawn's not necessarily going anywhere. And again, your same question of why did you put the pawn on D4? And he's instead played G4, which looks compromising.
Wow.
And maybe compromising after knight D5.
Wow, G4. Okay. That's lifting the kimono.
Yeah, but Queen G3. Queen G3. Okay, he's played Queen D2, not minding H5 happening to him. This just got crazy. What is happening?
Crazy in a way that, you know, with lots of time on the clock, you know, it's anyone's game. But I feel like black is just so much easier to play with white's king exposed and that solid knight on d5. And hey, 2-minute time advantage is huge as well. Capablanca looking over your shoulder.
I don't know.
Capablanca would get me nervous if he was looking over my shoulder. Like
absolutely,
this guy's got to go.
You've got to up the ante on all your moves when Cap is watching. But King, I'm wondering though, because I always like to know what my next few moves are going to be,
right?
Like to see the flow of the position, and I don't exactly know what black should be doing, especially after something like King f2.
So white's intention is King f2. So if you play a move like h5, and
King f2 is on the board. So there we go.
Right.
The issue is, what's your next move? Because h5 is exposing your position as well. So he's transferred the whole game, and he's played f4, complete sea change.
I like this move a lot, Maurice, because I didn't want to play h5 and open up the h file against myself, the king, but I do like the move f4 because if I can just go, I can squirm my way into the position with a queen h6, queen h4, and that's why we saw h4, queen h6, and I got to tell you, under
h1,
under duress, Bryce is finding some good moves.
I know.
It's like wow.
It's again the question, what is your winning plan as the rook on the c file dominating the one open line on the board is making life difficult. Now queen swinging to this square e6. I want to get my rook up. He just played rook g1. You know, his time pressure is huge now though, 21 seconds only. That's really critical for this young man.
Tough.
It's going to be very hard to finish with that, to defend properly with so little time.
Sam's really keeping the pressure on. He's moving quickly, trying to keep his time advantage, but also consider his moves at the same time. And he's played knight to c3.
Yes, sir.
Look at that potential rook takes g4 ideas here now, as you know, we got a fork on e4. Of course, if you move the rook on g1 away.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah. So could you do me a big favor? Could you pull up on your board Nicholas and Jeffrey, because we have two exciting finishes going on and we don't want to miss either one. An exchange sacrifice in this other game on the right in the analysis board, and Jeffrey trying to prove that this is not enough in this position while Sam is trying to win his game. Will Jeffrey be able to pull this one off, or does white have enough compensation? As it now looks like the pawn is dropping on f7.
Right. Definitely 2-result game here. Jeffrey for choice.
Oh, that's the end of that. I'm glad we turned to that just when we did. Good timing there. As bam, Jeffrey Zhang leaps into the lead with this killer blow.
That's a Mike Tyson uppercut right there. You walk right into king e5, rook f5. Perfectly on time. And did you notice that Jeffrey played that like instantly? I mean, was he ready or what? Ooh, and it looks like Sam is breaking through.
Is he?
Yeah, he just sacrificed a knight.
And now what?
Is it over?
Let's see. How do we do? If we play f3 check here, king f1, and the queen on d2 protects all the key squares, right?
Except
rook g4, queen f2. I mean, if you check me first. So Sam decides to take the pawn on g4 first. 15 seconds left for Bryce, 30 for Sam.
Is this winning? What about, there's a queen e3 problem. What to do?
h5, what?
h5 is the last thing to do. That was just panic.
Well, he didn't see a move was his problem. He just didn't have a move, so he had,
what about rook f1? Shouldn't rook f1 be the move?
Queen h3?
If I played rook f1 and moved my king back, now I can't play rook f1. Now he's played it. Yeah, rook f1 looked like the move on the last move.
On the last turn.
On the last turn, because then I just fix everything and get a running square for my king. That looked like it might have been winning.
B3.
What is Sam doing? Sam's bluffing.
Sam's definitely bluffing now.
He threw out B3 and he's making the position a complete mess, a hash of things.
But now Rook F2, and you have no tactics anywhere. By the way, Yasser, your King March, you're infecting everybody because that King is going to go to D3 and C4, and it's gone.
Yeah,
okay,
and he
tried to
Queen
stop
H3 to stop the King from rushing away. I thought he was going to go Queen H1 at once, and look at this.
Why did he do it now? He could have put Rook F3 in that position. Rook CF3.
But still crazy, guys. 12 seconds left for both players.
Exactly.
King D3
They're just
on the
blitzing
board.
now. Anything.
B5. Take
B5.
it.
What is that?
Take it. He's got
King C4, and now he's winning. The King is gone.
Sam bluffed, and he's in trouble.
Oh yeah,
exactly.
He's in trouble now. As
King-
the King has escaped on C4, and look at that Rook on G4. It's inept right now.
Exactly.
Who would have thought that getting that Rook to G4 wouldn't be useful? But Bryce, you got to move. 4
That's
seconds.
right.
And he's like
Queen to E2. Nice move, hitting the Queen and the Rook. Good move, forcing the Black Queen to go in the direction it did not wish to.
Ready.
And
He
now
was
King
ready
B4.
for King B4.
Nice.
That was a good move.
Nice. And now you have no moves as Black. Desperation, trying to get something going. Isn't that F pawn actually hanging? I feel like taking it.
He munched it. He munched it.
But maybe there's something.
Me too.
Oh, it wasn't edible.
Oh,
It
no.
wasn't edible. Now the whole game is shifted yet again. He's got to take this thing. He's got to
take it. Bryce.
Rook B1.
Rook B1, and he's back in business. But who's better?
No, there's
White,
still a big,
maybe?
there's a big pass pawn in the position, though, guys. Look at this pass. It's a
Yeah, that's a
monster
big pawn. But the Queen is tricky. I mean,
Queen
you
is
say the knights
very
are
tricky.
Rook-
You do
Rook
want to get
C-
your pawn to B6 somehow.
Rook to C4 just to defend the pawn.
Bryce, move. Okay. He keeps getting down almost to his last.
Down to just seconds on his clock. Now look at this. He's going to go King A4 and he's going to push the pawn. The Rook is ideal on B2. Okay,
And
how does that stop B6? It doesn't.
B6. He wants to play
3, 2,
A3, but he does
1.
nothing.
He plays Rook A2.
Oh no! Rook A2 is a terrible move, allowing Queen B1 check.
He could have played Rook G2 check instead, and now the
Yes.
B pawn is gone, and we have
No.
the
He could have
makings
played-
of an even position. Oh no!
Oh no! But the king is in a terrible square. Now there's D5 threatening Rook H4 mate.
Be careful! Be careful! There's
I don't
checks
want to
your
lose a rook.
position.
I don't want to lose a
Oh
rook
my
to
gosh!
check a
But
check.
D5 does seem to stop any
Oh, no.
problems. Is there's no tactic that wins the rook. I don't see.
I
any
don't know. I
shit.
mean, I don't like leaving those
Check.
rooks are protected.
Oh, there's a check on A. There was a check on A5, maybe. A check on
Right.
A5 was deadly. He missed a check
Yes.
on A5 in that position. They're both panicking because Queen A5 check looked very strong, and now a
Queen
check. Oh, these
A5
rooks are starting to
check.
become disconnected. By the way, yeah, Queen
That's the
A5 and
problem.
Queen D5, right? Was possible.
Yeah.
But anyway, he had Rook A4, Queen C3, and the game would have gone crazy. But here we go. Can the rooks join each other again? This has to happen. Maybe Rook C2 is the right way to play. He's brought his Rook to B3. And here we go. A double
That
attack.
should do it. That should do it if he wants, right? Well,
No, check.
No,
No,
check.
the rooks are going to be potent adversaries in this position and just defend your.
Oh no! But he's disconnected his rooks again.
Okay, he
He
can
could've-
always
he-
draw.
He
If the
could
guy
have put his
wants to
rook.
play
yeah,
more
that's
draw.
it. He's just gonna draw. Rook B8. That's great.
What? What a roller coaster game this game.
But
turned
why does
out
he
to
need a
be.
draw? Why not Rook B4 here? Why take a draw?
Oh no. I think he's gonna draw now.
Rook
He doesn't.
B4.
He's been through a lot, Maurice. This has been quite a
We're
through a
not
lot.
done. We want to watch more.
I want
I think that was the
liability
right decision.
insurance.
It's not just the emotions, but it's not just the
I
emotions.
need health
but
insurance.
He kept getting down to 2 seconds, 1 second on the clock. That was too touch and go.
Oh my goodness! Oh my goodness! I mean,
That was
felt like the big
insane.
one.
That was insane. There were so many blunders by everybody, the players, the commentators. I mean, that was insane. What
Oh,
a
swinging
finish.
for the
This
fences.
is why we like the juniors. They play so many exciting positions, such great time scrambles. Oh wow, that
Oh,
was a
my
lot
goodness.
of fun.
How did Bryce win the knight? What was Sam doing? Oh, this is where Sam came up with the genius idea of knight e4 check, losing a knight for nothing. He could have done what you wanted, Jen. He could have played rook takes g4.
Maybe he thought rook takes c3. Rook takes c3 there.
Okay,
rook
that
d4
was
c3.
Yes, you're right. He was probably afraid to venture into a line like this.
Yeah, because I was actually thinking in this position, I'm dying to play rook c3, even if you don't, give me a rook to go along
Right.
with it. I just want to get rid of that knight.
I know the knight was too much. Oh my goodness, what a game! But knight e4 check looks like he overestimated his position.
I thought rook f1 here would have been quite strong instead of h5.
Exactly.
It just seemed like
just consolidating. Yeah,
Looks
h5 looked like what? I mean,
out of nowhere.
That was fun, though. That was really fun to watch. And I think that we have a tie at the lead, I believe, right now, as we've got indeed Jeffrey Zhang, our pre-tournament favorite, tied with Brandon Jacobson, as both young men have put on a show today, winning 2 games and drawing 1. John Burke also, lost his first game, but dazzling back-to-back victories. A little bit less happy, but still with 2 points. And that's because Praveen, on the other hand, won his first 2 games, really nice games, and then lost his last round.
And we have a special guest, Jennifer.
That's right. We do have Praveen Balakrishnan with us. Hello, Praveen. It was a dramatic day for you.
Yeah, it started off well, ended off poorly, but still a good result so far.
Yeah, tell us about the players in this tournament that you've had the most experience against playing, because I know, you've been a veteran of the National High School Championships. Who do you have the most battles history with?
Well, probably Brandon, because we used to both live in New Jersey and we played a lot there. So we probably have at least 10 games against each other. And all the other participants, I've played them like a few times, like maybe 2 or 3 times. But yeah, Brandon definitely, I have the most games against him.
Well, he's leading the tournament right now. So which game do you guys want to take a quick look at with Praveen? Because he had those 2 victories, starting off with Christopher Shen, and then you also won against Nicholas Cheka.
Which game did you prefer, Praveen?
Exactly.
Which was the one you thought was your best game? Was your better?
The better game was probably the one with Nico, I'd say.
And where did you think the turning point came in this game?
With Nico or with Christopher?
With Nico. That's the one, the French
well,
game.
It was I thought I had a good position out of the opening, and yeah, so bishop f6, queen e2, queen f, yeah, so I saw this c4 idea after rook c8, and I was pretty proud of that move because it kind of puts him in a bind where after everything got traded off with queen takes c4, queen takes c4, dc4, d5, then his king is stuck and he had to resort to giving up his c-pawn to block with this knight. But then there was no clear way for me to break through on the king side, because the way the pawn structure was, even though I had an extra pawn, there was no clear way for me to create a pass pawn, and it took a lot of time. And eventually his king came in, and I wasn't really sure what was going on at one point, but then he blundered mate in 3.
Oh yeah, that was awesome. A king checkmate. We love to see it. Okay, I guess it's not really a king checkmate. But did you instantly see that? You had anticipated it?
Yeah, I saw that when I played rook d5. I thought he would have to play maybe rook c5, and yeah, I wasn't really sure. It's kind of a race because I have my h pawn, but he probably will make his own pass pawns on that side too, and we were both in time pressure too. So anything could have happened.
Always nice when they fall into your trap.
Yeah.
Cooperating.
Yeah, I've never seen anything quite like that before. A really nice one for the kids watching at home, for sure. But it's good to get your king active in the end game, but every rule has its exception.
Yeah, there were so few pieces he probably didn't realize that his king was almost getting mated.
So are you planning on making any draws in this tournament or just all decisive games?
Well, if it's all wins, then I'll be happy with decisive games.
And here it is, his results so far. Wins against Christopher Shen and Nico Cheka, and a loss in the last round to Brandon Jacobson, who's now tied for the lead with Jeffrey Jean. Well, Praveen, thank you for joining us, and good luck tomorrow. We hope you another dramatic day and a good one.
Yeah, thank you.
Take care.
Congratulations. See you tomorrow.
Wow.
It's always tough to start off. The score that he has 2 points.
Right.
But his 2 is not the same, for example, as John Burke's is 2.
Although he does get a rest. So at least there's that, right? You know, it's not like he has to play. I think it's always really hard in these 3 rounds a day. I mean, 3 rounds a day.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. That's a positive way to look at it. But still, he's thinking, I got to come back, right? That's his mindset coming tomorrow. While Burke is thinking, I'm on a roll. I got the first game behind me, and I'm ready to party. Could we play the next round now, please? Do you see how I'm playing right now? I mean, his games have really been the showcase of this tournament. I mean, honestly, both games he won were just brilliant, just special. So he's going to be somebody to watch. At the moment, though, he's not in the lead. He's only a half a point behind, with 2 other players who are saying, well, we're in the lead, so you should be talking about us. I don't know why you're bragging on them.
And we have another guest, Jet?
Speaking of being in the lead, we have JX in the building. Jeffrey, welcome. Congratulations on your lead right now.
Hi, can you hear me, guys?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
And we only see your eyes, so you might want to back up just a little bit in the camera so we can see.
Yeah, I'm trying to pull up my video right now. I can't quite see anything. Very weird. Okay. Is that? Let me know if it's any
Looks
better.
good. All right, that's good enough, indeed. By the way, I know for sure you had the Heat in the finals against the Lakers. That's what I'm guessing.
No, I wish I could say that. I was on the Clippers for most of the year, so yeah, I was pretty much dead wrong about it.
Okay, all right. I'm joking because I know you're a huge sports fan and you're following all of the NBA and everything. But this is the tournament we're at right now, and you are now at 2.5. How did you feel about your play today?
Yeah, overall, I wasn't too pleased. I felt like I was under pressure in all 3 of the games. I felt my opponents were actually outplaying me. So I definitely need to raise my level in the next 2 days.
Is there a game you play that you really felt badly about? Like, you really feel like you stole that game?
I felt like I stole both of my wins.
Okay.
Nothing was clean today.
And this last game you played, your king just kept trying to get out of D8, D7, had to go back to D8. That looked weird, to say the least.
Yeah, no, it wasn't ideal for sure, but on the other hand, I didn't really see a convenient way to operate. It was probably, I think he maybe missed a moment or 2 where he could have done better, but at this point I felt he has a passed F-pawn, but I have it more or less under control, so it was roughly balanced for a long time, and I was able to use his time pressure to my advantage.
Do you see this event as a completely separate event from the U.S. Championship, or potentially it's a warm-up to you for the U.S. Championship?
For sure, it's a warm-up. It's a very good warm-up because I feel like all the players in the event are going to pose significant challenges to me. It's already evident from day 1. So I definitely think it's a great tune-up for the U.S. Championship.
That said, this is your last ever junior event. You turn into a man in, is it the 30th? Is that your birthday? The 30th of this month.
Yes.
So you break into the big 2-0. How does that feel knowing that the junior days are about to be behind you?
Yeah, it makes me feel really old, I have to say.
I know how you feel, Jeffrey. I've been there.
Yeah, it's just very sad that I remember, I think my first juniors was in 2011, and it's just really reminiscing these old times. I've always enjoyed hanging out with my fellow junior players, and definitely will miss this event.
Incredible.
Well, Jeffrey, it's great to
put it in
see
your
you
pocket.
here. It's great to see you here, Jeffrey, as we've been used to this summer watching you play against Magnus and the top players in the world, and now it's you who are the favorite. So a little bit of a different dynamic for us watching you, but it's fun either way.
Do you feel the pressure of being the favorite?
Not really. It's more or less still just playing good moves on the chessboard. That's what it comes down to. So not really feeling any extra pressure or anything.
Always very cool. JX in the building. Thank you so much. Congratulations on your performance today, and we look forward to seeing you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Good luck.
Good luck.
He's one of the coolest competitors I know. Like absolutely zero emotion when he's playing. You cannot guess anything that's going on in his mind. He could be wailing on you, crushing you. You don't see a smile on his face.
He's got a poker face. He does. There's even there's like some famous photo of him at the chess club with his hoodie on, black and white photo. Yeah, he definitely has it. And I believe him that he doesn't feel a lot of pressure, because it's one thing to be the highest ranked player, but he's the highest ranked player, but he's not like 50% plus to win the event, right? There's so many gladiators. So he's still going to feel awesome if he wins it, you know, besting Sam Sevian and 8 other Hungry Lions.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we have a co-leader of the event with us now, Brandon Jacobson, coming off a really special win in the last game. First of all, congratulations, Brandon. You must be feeling pleased with the day's result.
Yeah, I think I did the best.
We don't hear Brandon yet.
Brandon, we can barely hear you. We're going to try to fix the audio situation.
Audio is.
Hello.
Hi, Brandon.
Better now?
Better. Got you there. Right. Okay. What did you say?
Yeah, I think I did well with my time management, most importantly today, and I took the opportunities I was given. I don't feel like I necessarily played such amazing chess, but I just kept the time advantage and just did the best I could given the chances. And I feel like both Sam and Praveen were definitely not in their top form today, so I just took advantage of all the opportunities I got.
What was your favorite game or favorite moment from the day today? There a move you felt was special?
Probably against Sam. Just it felt like I was heading into a little bit of trouble, but then I sort of just took control over the position, and he couldn't really protect all his pawns. Like I think this idea of giving up the 2 bishops for the light squares is probably inaccurate. I think instead of queen e3, he should play e5 and then go a4 and just completely shut off all my counterplay on the queen side, and then I'm probably in a bit of trouble. But I feel like especially in rapid, these types of positions are always like really hard to play for white, because you have the initiative, you need to prove something with your central pawns, and then it's easier for me to get a counterattack if you're not careful. So yeah, I think here, I mean, I see here the computer said it's equal, but I think it's already really hard for white practically.
Right, it just didn't have great play in this position. Actually, you won the game fairly easily, which is surprising coming against a player of Sam's skill level.
Yeah, I mean, he did have a lot of tricks, but there wasn't really much he could do. Like, he's down 2 central pawns, and the attack isn't really getting anywhere, so he just needed to avoid a few tricks, and then it was pretty easy from there.
I don't know if you were particularly impressed by your h5 as well. I thought that was really, let's call it the showstopper. Whatever fantasies white was having, h5 shut them down. So that was a real all-star move for me. Sorry, Maurice.
No, not at all. you may not have had huge aspirations coming into the event, but now you find yourself tied for first. Any thoughts now potentially seeing that trophy on your mantle?
Well, I have to take it one game at a time because the next round I have Black against Jeffrey, which obviously is not an easy pairing. So I'm just going to do the best I can and see where it goes.
That's the professional answer. Definitely the right attitude. Well, congratulations. You're tied for first in the U.S. Junior Championship. Good luck tomorrow.
Thank you.
Good luck, Brandon.
Good luck.
Yeah, he played a wonderful game against Sam. That was something definitely to be proud of. And now he stands atop the leaderboard. But as he said, Black against JX, that's going to be an indicator. I remember watching you guys play, you guys doing commentary or following the commentary, and it wasn't it Carissa beating Annie in the first round on the second day that catapulted her, that kept her going?
Yes.
And put Annie backwards right away.
Right.
So that was very important. First game out the gate. He's got to hold Jeffrey back right there. That's a big game for him. Could really mean winning or losing the event just right out the gate. Because if Jeffrey wins that game and catches a nice roll, especially with Sam only with a point, Jeffrey's got 2.5. Sam's got 1. Somebody's got to slow Jeffrey down as far as Sam's concerned. Because if Jeffrey starts rolling and gets that form that won him the World Junior Championship back in 2016, you could just be watching this guy clean house the rest of the way.
Absolutely.
And we're being asked who we pick from.
Ooh, you should have asked us that before at the start of the day.
So we have all night to research it. Come on, guys.
I'm gonna go with Jeffrey on this one.
Shocker.
I'm gonna go with the highest rated guy who's leading the field.
All right, Maurice, you're out.
Let's see. Who do I want to pick? Well, I don't care what anyone says. I'm going to make the show boring and copy Yasser.
All right.
The number one player in the tournament. I think Jeffrey's going to hold it down.
Who's VAR picking? I want to find out who VAR is picking Jacobson. Okay, VAR is picking Brandon Jacobson. I want them to be 4 different people. And now I have a tough choice between John Burke and Praveen. I mean, John's prep was awesome. Praveen's positional play. But I'm going to go with John because if he just gets some prep like that a couple more times, hey, it could be lights out for whoever's in front of him.
Right. Well, I tell you, if you had asked me before play started, before the first game, I would have said Sam Sevian.
Jeffrey.
And then we would have all had different picks. But when Jeffrey starts 2.5 out of half and looks good, he says he wasn't happy with his play.
Exactly. That's the worst part of
it. I want that guy. I want that guy.
It's like when Magnus goes, I didn't have any good games today. I say, but you're leading by like 2 points. Yeah, but my play wasn't so good, It
wasn't perfect.
You're crushing the field. Yeah, but I could have won 2 more games. I could have been.
Shouldn't have let that guy escape with a draw.
These guys are perfectionists and animals. They're sharks.
Right.
They don't want to just win. They want to win correctly.
All right. Well,
not enough.
Our schedule. We've got 3 more rounds tomorrow, and we wrap it up on Thursday, October 15th, rounds 7 through 9, and our potential playoff. Guys, this day was full of so many amazing moments. I can't wait for tomorrow, and we'll see you same time, same place.
Expect more of the same tomorrow for sure. So tell your friends where you're hanging out, and thank you for joining us. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.